enjoy our backyards and our neighborhoods. My education in local airport policy is limited. I do know that between local, county, and FAA regulations, there are many factors and time constraints on making changes within the airport district. I hear a hopeful proposal being offered by the ACAT is to increase instrument departure procedures for the runway, for runway 11, which would route air traffic away from the Prosser neighborhood and other subdivisions. Another optimistic option is one that Mary Hetherington and David Diamond have proposed, which appears very promising. The turn left when departing runway 29 bypass to bypass Prosser is also encouraging. This option has some hurdles before it as per FAA requirements. As a Prosser Lakeview resident, I would very much appreciate some sort of update on the progress of this and other proposals in layman's language. I have also heard about a proposal for a runway that could, a new runway which, I'm losing my place here, which was put on the table at a previous meeting of the airport board. I understand that this runway would diminish air traffic from affected neighborhoods. I also understand that one of the reasons the solution is not being considered is the effect it would have on the business known as SOAR Truckee. That's a shame. As a taxpayer and a concerned Prosser Lakeview resident, I am questioning the lack of motivation by the board to pursue a new runway, which would divert traffic over our residential communities. SOAR Truckee receives subsidies from the airport. It's a business that serves a small and elite portion of the community. SOAR Truckee not only inhabits a large footprint around the airport, but also contributes to a diminishing quality of life in our area due to its noise pollution. If a new runway has the promise of diverting air traffic, there should be every effort made on the board's part to investigate and inform the public of this option and the pros and cons associated with this proposal. I would challenge the board members to spend a day in Prosser during peak, even non-peak flight times. I would ask you to consider if you would want the level of prolonged noise in your yard. I would ask you to put yourselves in the shoes of those of us who live here and hear the drum of air traffic continually overhead day after day. You are our representatives. Please show your proactive response and act to make changes in our quality of life. And I really do thank you for reading this letter or listening to this letter and considering my plea. And I also very much so appreciate your service and your time to our community. I look forward to hearing resolutions. Sincerely. And that's me, Julia Flaherty Lawrence. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Any clarification needed there? We're going to talk about SOAR Truckee later, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to that. So I think, are we done with consent? Yeah, we voted on it. That was public comment. So now, Mary, you're up.
So the
Or
monthly,
ops and comments, yeah.
yeah, for ops and comments, I don't know if anybody's on Facebook, but the Prosser Lakeview portion of that really lit up this week, with quite a lot of people feeling it. And I think that's why you're getting a lot of calls from Prosser Lakeview. It's what I hear from people. In the last 4 days, I've been spoken to quite harshly by people saying, what are you doing? Why, do something. And it's not just Prosser, it's other areas too. So, but it's an interesting lot of comments. In terms of the ops and comment report, when I was asking David, in terms of, when I read it, I don't see where touch and goes are on here. And I would like that to be added under operations, what that adds up to, how many touch and go operations. If the tower's keeping that, we should have that. Is that viable to add that in?
We can work on getting at as accurate a count as we can.
Well, anything's better than nothing. So we have nothing now that really addresses it. So I would like to see that.
Yeah. This meeting in particular, I was going to ask afterwards if there's any additions or subtractions from the report that you guys would like to see. So, touch and goes on the list so far.
Got it. Another thing I would like to see is a kind of a breakout by type of aircraft, because your very first statement is it's a 1,845 operations, which is a 15% increase. However, jets increased by 51% in May of last year to May of this year. That's a whole another way of looking at it. If you average snow over 365 days, we get 2 inches at a time. We don't need snow removal. People don't experience it average. They don't experience a 15% increase. They're experiencing a 51% increase. Pistons increase 20%. So in terms of this diagram, I would like to see percentage increase by type of aircraft. These are huge bumps, and people are feeling it. When I read the mission statement, and the Truckee Tahoe Airport is a community airport that provides high quality aviation facilities and services to meet local needs. We do that, and strives for low impact on our neighbors. That's what people are feeling is not being done, while enhancing the benefit to the community at large. And so when I look at this mission statement, I see we're kind of doing the first thing and the third thing. And the middle thing is kind of, I'm going to bring that up over and over. How, when we make these decisions, is it striving to make a low impact on our neighbors? Because they're feeling it and people are not happy. And when I realized that traffic has increased 3 times in 15 years, and I think out 15 more years, I think this is a significant impact on people's lives. And aircraft noise does make a difference in people's health. I notice also on our webpage, when you go to our website, right off the bat, there's all the great services we have, everything that addresses number 1. But to dig around to find anything on the voluntary curfew, I had to really dig in to try and find that again, to get clarity in my mind. I remember we started the Tranquility campaign, but nothing's happened to it. There's this mutual respect thing where this understanding of, yes, this is your recreation and this is a contributor to the economy, but it also has impact on people on the ground, and people are not happy about it, and we need to be cognizant of that. And I would like to see on the webpage, front and center, when you open it up, that says a lot more about Tranquility campaign, mutual respect, a voluntary curfew. It's really, that's a big piece of what we should be reaching out with. The fourth thing here is this last part about the voluntary curfew hours. From the transients, Pilot was sent an email about the curfew, and I'm asking David, do you get any responses?
We, I think, often get responses. That would be something that pilot and passenger outreach coordinator would hear back. He's the one who sends the emails and letters.
So as far as you know, you're not seeing anything coming back to you saying thank you, or this was just, oh well. I mean, I would like to see that there was more than a letter was sent, because, I get a lot of mail, and some of it I go, oh, that's nice, and I tear it up and I throw it out. And there's that follow-up aspect that it's pretty important, and especially if some of these transients, if they're private or if they're corporate. If they're corporate, we really should be trying a lot harder. If it's a one-off, if it's somebody who came through once, it's one thing. If it's a corporate or private entity that's coming in here quite often, we need to do more than just say, oh, we sent them an email, we sent them a letter. It's not enough. We need to be doing more, which ties into my last point about, I've been on Flight Aware quite a lot lately. And Flight Aware is really a great site. It shows where the planes are. It shows their registration, it shows their altitude, it shows their flight plan. And noticing that, and then also that ties into our vector site, which comes off of our website, which vector's delayed 10 minutes, whereas FlightAware is instant. So that is something else I want to bring up later, because there should be no reason why we have a 10-minute delay if FlightAware is on time. But we need to reach out. I mean, I've been on the board. We went to, and Hardy remembers, we went and met with NetJets back in 05, 06, 07, and they helped to find options. They developed their own special. We worked with their chief pilots. And as I'm on FlightAware watching some of these aircraft take off, go up truck and make the U-turn, have we reached out to those corporates, say, hey, it would save you fuel to go straight out? Why, you have your standard operating procedure that says you have to go to truck, but it's costing you fuel and it's costing you time. And we should be making a real direct outreach to these chief pilots. We have the list of who are normal, non-scheduled, on-demand air carriers. We have Centurion, Eldorado, FlexJet, Flight Options, GAM Aviation, Kaiser Air, Sunset Aviation, Surf Air, ExoJets. These were all people that we collected data from. And we should be making, I am proposing that we make a list of, we have the data, find who's making the most of these flights, Mountain Lion, Sierra Aero, and talking to them and saying, these are your standard operating procedures, but they cost you money.
Did we lose her?
You still there, Mary?
Frozen.
Yeah, I think we lost you. Maybe while she's coming back on, just from a staff perspective, there you are.
The people are getting very annoyed in many neighborhoods. Prosser, it's just that Facebook page is really flying around and people are getting real fed up. And if we have another 3-time increase, and just even in 1 year, if that much more fuel is being sold. So the bottom line, I want to keep count of touch and goes. I'm going to bring up over and over what our decisions, how they strive to have a low impact on our neighbors. I want something done on the web page that puts the voluntary curfew and mutual respect and tranquility issues and greenhouse gas. I want those on front and center on the web page. I would like, I want us to take a much bigger outreach to the corporate aircraft. Those would be my 3 big things. So those are my comments, and I'm channeling other people, and it's real.
Yeah, and if I can make a couple comments, Mary, thank you for those. I don't know that I don't disagree with anything you put out there. I think those were all great things. I did want to just reiterate that
Rick just asked on Facebook, you have to be in Prosser Lakeview. You know how there are sub communities.
Sure.
I printed them off. Probably some of the other person can print it off or forward it to you. I don't know that I can forward out of Facebook. I'm not that good.
We see those, and they come from various neighborhoods.
And I think you have to request to be a member of this community, and somebody has to approve you for you to get onto the Prosser Lakeview site.
Okay. So just to follow up on a few of those things, I just sure that, you know,
any responses? I mean, we have a responsibility. We are an airport board. We have a responsibility to the pilots. We have a responsibility to have a good airport. We also have a responsibility to the people who live under the flight tracks.
Okay.
I think we all agree on that.
Everything's frozen.
Mary, can you hear me? I'm not sure if you can hear me. No, I just wanted to make sure we follow up, and some of these things, these are all great things and they're great comments, and a couple things I just want to follow comment report is we don't just send letters to operators. involved conversations with those folks. I think if the will of the board, and that's one of the things I'm looking for. I think Mary's put a lot of things on the table. I would just love to hear a little bit from, make sure that our direction.
Am I the only one frozen?
I think, yeah. We can hear you, Mary. I don't know if you can hear us. And I don't know if Hardy or can text Mary or let her know that we're having a hard time.
Yeah, this is Lisa. I'll also try and text her and let her know.
Perfect. But I just want to make sure that I get any comments from other board members before we change the website and do some of these other things. I think that we can do some of those things, but I just wanted to make sure that's the consensus of the board to move that direction with some of those things. But I'm pretty proud of our extensive to our operators.
I got frozen out. Did everybody?
Okay.
No.
I can hear you. So I think you're good. We just can't get your video.
Well, I can lose the video, but I can't. So do I have to exit and come back in?
No, we can hear you on the meeting. You're talking on the meeting right now.
Okay. I can't see anybody. I can't hear anybody.
Mary, nobody else is talking right now.
I can't hear anything.
Everyone, so could you or somebody?
So, I would like to know what people are responding.
So, Hardy's working with her on that.
And can you hear me on my telephone?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna cut my call off with you, and you're on the air. We can hear you on the public board meeting.
I can't see or hear anybody else.
Okay. I'd request that you log back in.
Okay, if you could ask the comments to stop so I can hear what people are saying, because I would like to know.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me? No one else is really talking.
Okay, we can wait a second for Mary.
When Mary comes back on,
She's back on.
Comment. I'll just keep talking then. I heard that people were texting her, and that was, if it was just in terms of letting her know that we couldn't hear her or she couldn't hear us, that's fine. But I would warn the board against texting each other. One-to-one is okay, but I don't want any concerns about any side meetings going on, not part of the public meeting.
Fair enough, Brent. This is Lisa. I was the one who said I would text her, and I did just clarify that we were discussing her comments and she was not hearing us. So that's all I said.
Yeah, and that's fine, but I just want to make sure everybody is careful about their texting.
Okay, I'm here now. So.
Oh, can you hear me, Mary? It's Kevin.
So I don't know what I missed, but I am curious. I vented. I'm channeling other people's concerns, and I think it needs to be respected. And I listed the 3 things I would like, and I want to know what the board member thinks.
So, Mary, can you hear us now? Can you hear me speaking? This is Kevin. Okay, good. Yes. I was saying what you just said is that. We appreciate those comments, and they are valid. I don't, as I listen to them, I don't know that I disagree with any of those things. I think those are all important comments. I've lived for 10 years in Sierra Meadows, right in the same neighborhood that is affected heavily by departures, by touch and goes and all those things. So I think a lot of the other employees also, kind of feel that also. So we do want to work hard towards some of these solutions. I did want to reiterate that we don't just send letters to our pilot community, that they, Mark Covey has extensive outreach with them. And we're happy to give what detail that they would like on that. But I guess my comment is for our other board members is for us to take action on some of these things. I just would love to make sure that there's consensus to move forward with some of these things that Mary has talked about. Any of the comments from the other board, or we as a staff change. I wouldn't call it a change, because I think some of these things we're trying our best to do work really hard to do those things.
This is Rick. I would like to comment that Mary hears from a lot of people, and I just found out tonight that she gets them through a specific Facebook group, which you have to be a member of, which I am not, and I don't see these comments. And I sometimes give Mary a hard time is how come they don't tell us at the airport? Is there a way we can get these comments into the staff and board members, these comments from Prosser Lakeview?
That goes to the question, and I printed it off, this email thread. I could distribute it. I can, is that something I can pass around to the other board members?
I think not.
Yeah, my preference would be to send it to Kevin, Hardy, David, Mark, whoever the appropriate person is at the airport. And then that can be included in board packages and things like that. So everybody can see.
Okay.
So real quick, the things that I heard, touch and go data, we're going to look at that and see if we can get that in the ops and comment report specifically. More outreach on our website talking about impact that departures have, that arrivals, departures have in our community, and for people to be respectful. More outreach, and I think what we need to do is provide the board more data on, I think, already industry leading outreach to aircraft operators. And I know that from talking with lots of my general managers at other general aviation airports. Ours is leading edge as to how into and integrated we try and get with the flight departments from other operators. But definitely more we can do. I'm not saying there's not more that shouldn't be done. We'll definitely look at that. So those are some of the things that I don't, from a staff perspective, we have no issue, working harder on those things or putting more data out on that.
So this goes to, I heard an interesting statement recently about culture eats policy for lunch. And this is a culture I'm asking for that says that strive for low impact moves up in the hierarchy. And that's where I'd like to see those things on the webpage when you first pull it up, because that's what the pilots see when they first see it.
Perfect.
I would love, right.
Yeah.
No issue with that.
I don't have any issue. It's actually one of the 6 core values that we talk about as staff is low impact on our community. And there's about 6 pages of things that we do from a staff perspective to try and have low impact. And I think maybe what I need to do is communicate out what those are, those daily things we do from a staff perspective to try and enhance and affect that low impact from where we're able to affect. There's obviously things that happen at this airport that we don't have a tremendous amount of influence over, but there's things that we do. And so we work hard with those things. And I can talk more about those at a future meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I go to the first website and we've got the plane and we've got virtual board meeting, recruitment for an administrative clerk. What I'd like to see is when they first come up, not just a picture of a really cool aircraft, but ideas about voluntary curfew, greenhouse gases, mutual respect, tranquility campaign. Those should be front and center in my mind, not just a cool aircraft.
So who is in charge of our web design, Kevin?
It's me. I mean, I'm ultimately in charge of
Great.
all these. And
Put that on there.
Mark Land is very good at these things, and we'll get with him tomorrow, and he's probably listening and is aware. So we'll work. We can work on those things.
Great.
Can I make a couple comments?
Of course.
I just wanted to say, because that was sort of an unleashing a little bit. I don't disagree with the premise of, can we do more? Is there something else we can do to strive to be low impact to our neighbors? I've been on this board for a really long time, not quite as long as Mary, but I've had my thinking cap on the whole time. And I just wanted to appreciate, Kevin, what you do on a daily basis and what you're trying to do, and appreciate this board and previous boards of what they're trying to do, and just maybe annotate and put an asterisk next to, there's a lot we can't do, and we're working at it. We're super open to the ideas, but I don't think it's totally fair to just say this is ridiculous that there's all this traffic and we're doing a terrible job, because I have seen an incredible amount of traffic in Tahoe City. I've seen even more when I go over to Kings Beach. I've seen even more when I get to Truckee. And when I go over to Incline Village, it's crazy. There's a lot of people here. I can't go on a rant and get upset at the fact that people want to come to this beautiful place, because the world's going through a tough time. And I think there needs to be some appreciation for the fact that there's a lot of people driving around in cars right now too. So maybe we should start tracking how many cars are on the interstate and comparing that to the new increase in air traffic.
I wholeheartedly agree with all that. I think our staff and our board strive every minute to reduce the impact on our neighbors.
And I guess, Artie, do you remember when we flew back and met with, went to Columbus and met with NetJets? There was a group of us, and they really put some effort into thinking about it, didn't they?
Yeah, we still have a good relationship with them, and we actively do work with them currently on their flight procedures and their SOPs here at Truckee.
And I guess that's what I'm thinking, is that we could be doing the same level of effort with these other corporate flying entities. And, you know, we brought a big contingent to NetJets to say, hey, we care about this. And I think we could get some action if we make that effort, if we initiate it. And that's what I'm asking that we try to start thinking about again. It made a big difference with NetJets. It can make a big difference with these other corporates. And I would ask staff to think about that and try to embrace that.
Yeah, we can give you some information on the partnerships we have in place currently and signatory incentives with commercial operators like Jet Suite, Wheels Up, NetJets, FlexJet, fractionals, and charter operators that we've made inroads with. So we have a lot of those, and as Kevin was discussing earlier, it may just be an information transfer that we need, is to just really get you the information on items that were already underway and that we've worked with our tower and other flight operators to work with on some of those programs. So I think we can bring forward that information for you, Mary.
Yes, I mean, I would like it if you can send that to me now, those signatures, and maybe we want to address that in the July report. I would like to see that.
And as long as the board works with Kevin and directs the staff members that work for Kevin to do that, we'll certainly get on that right away.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's something in the July report or the August report. But I'd like to see it ahead of time so I have an idea, because I'm getting approached a lot. And if I know these things, I can also talk to people about these things. But I don't know that we had signatories. I didn't know that till just now. So, going back, the other thing I would like to see on the webpage, and this goes back to the Flight Aware, which is a really awesome site. I think that would be a very useful thing to have front and center at the beginning of the webpage to show people the aircraft. I mean, and the vector thing, I don't find it as useful. And it's 10 minutes delayed. And I think having that front and center on the web page, having the flightaware.com site is going to be very useful to people. And I'd like to see that. So
great. Hey, Kevin, why don't you just work with Mary on website design to put whatever she wants on the front page?
Yeah,
I don't think anybody objects. Just put it up there and let's move on.
Can do that.
Great.
Sorry, public
Sorry,
comment.
Teresa, I just have one other comment.
Okay.
I think that per Jim's point about increased visitation and Mary's and others' point about increased flights, we are in for a rough period with regard to traffic, car traffic, and with regard to plane traffic. And so I do think we're in for a pretty rough period in terms of impact on locals, and that we've talked about this before, that kind of harassment level feeling for people. So I think it is going to bear, to echoing Kevin, it is going to bear a repeat and a reminder of some of the information and programs that we've had in place in the past, right? And I understand your point, Kevin, fully, that what you can bring to us is a reminder and a refresher and a more detail on the information. I really want to support and validate that. It's been a little while since we've had to really dive in and help the community address their feelings of distress. And there's going to be interactions of increased flight ops distress with other kinds of distress, but we're definitely in for it. And just one last thing, thank you for listening. I'm also being approached. I haven't been approached for months and months and months by people with regarding flight operations. And the last 3 weeks, I can barely go anywhere without somebody approaching me unhappy with the increase in flights. So just to say, I'm sure all of us are hearing it to some degree, but yeah.
Thank you. Any other board comments? Any public comment, David?
Yeah, we got one on the text. This comes from Matt Miller. Matt says, "You don't count the number of touch and goes until now? Why? That's crazy. Tower operators can count this easily. We're paying for this person a lot of money, mostly doing nothing. Last Sunday morning after church was really bad. Question, why don't they fly touch and goes to the right after takeoff from runway 29 instead of left over cheaper houses and our older neighborhoods?"
Thanks for the comment. Any other public comment? Okay. Do we need to vote on this or move on, or?
It's a consent information item, the ops and comment report. So I don't know that it requires a motion. I do have some, these things that we had talked about with the website, and then also, refreshing everyone on, and we are actually talking about this as a staff of trying to get better information out there to folks to know what it is that we are doing, that we work on this every day. But every day we work on these things that have come up, and so we'll get going on those things, and then in July we can report on our activities on trying to address these things.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to number 9, Town of Truckee night service request.
Perfect.
Tart.
I'd like to jump in. Sorry, Kevin, I have a question for you. Are you
Yes.
still on the TNT TMA board?
That was my first note here to say that before I said anything about this request. Yes. So the next request is just a request from the town of Truckee seeking funding support for the new regional night service. And I just need to let everyone know that I am a non-salaried board member of the Truckee North Management Agency. What else, Brent? Did I need to say anything else?
That it's a 501c3 corporation.
501c3 corporation, TNT TMA, as it's referred to. I think Kelly Beatty's on the line from the town of Truckee, can answer any questions the board has. As you might remember, in our budget process, the board allocated $366,000 for regional transit programs. So all the folks that work in those regional transit programs are aware of that and are trying to figure out how we can best leverage some of those dollars. And so working with the town of Truckee, with Placer County TART, TNT TMA, these are the people that do most of the thinking and action around regional transit in our area. And so they brought a proposal forward to the board to allocate $92,997 in 2020 with a 3% escalator in 2021 and 2022. What this would allow the town and TART to do is to extend our night service, which is really what we find that a lot of employees of our local businesses use that service to get to and from work. They're able to get to work during the shoulder season, but they can't get home. They're trying to find other ways to get home. And so by us assisting the town on that effort, TART will be able to expand that service to year round, so that it would also provide a better bus coverage during those shoulder seasons. And just as a reminder, our 2020 transit goal is to seek additional public transit partners to support regional transit connectivity, look for additional opportunities to connect the district with the Reno Tahoe International Airport via transit and shuttle. Second part of that goal, we actually are working on something on there. So this would spend a little bit more of our funding. It still leaves about $120,000 if we decided to fund this. In addition to the free fares, the shoulder service, we would still have $120,000 left in 2020 of that transit budget. So the detailed letter that kind of explains it, along with the letter of support for MTTMA. So I won't get into all the details there unless there are questions. And then Kelly Beatty's on the line if you had any questions for her from the Tech Truckee.
Rick?
Hello, Teresa. You saw me unmute.
I did.
This is a request for, with the 3% escalator of $287,444.43. What's not clear to me from the staff report is what of the cost of this program is the town of Truckee contributing?
So for the Kelly Beatty, Town of Truckee, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. So the Town of Truckee is spending 50% of the cost, and we were seeking a 50% partnership through the airport district.
Thank you. That wasn't clear in the staff report.
No, I didn't see it either. Anything else, Rick? Is that it? You went back on mute.
Well, I assume that since the town is funding 50%, this has gone through the town council.
So the town council, this service is in our budget, and the town council has provided town staff direction to seek partner funding for Truckee TART services. So the peak season, so the peak season service that we just started operating in December was required to have some type of partnership funding per the town council direction. And so we worked with Placer County to fund 50% of the cost of the peak season service, which is peak winter and peak summer. And because of the success of the service, we decided that it would be most helpful and beneficial to the community to support our employees year round, not just in peak winter and peak summer, because our employees generally work year round. And that's why we looked toward being able to expand the service. Our transit operator is able to hire drivers to do that, and we have a transit fleet that's able to support that. And so we felt that it was prudent to go ahead and run a 3-year pilot, which is generally industry standard. Whenever you roll out a new service, it takes about 3 years to build up consistent ridership. And so that's why we've moved forward with the desire to operate the service year round.
Okay, I've got a couple questions / comments. Is the extended service throughout all of TART's routes, meaning at the lake as well?
So Placer County for years, Placer County TART for years has been operating night service from North Lake Tahoe to the resorts, but they haven't been operating north of the resorts to Truckee. And it is in both the town of Truckee's and Placer County's long-range transit plans to operate regional night service and to include that section that currently there was no service until December. It's also been identified as an unmet need for years. So every year we have a transit unmet needs public meetings and workshops, and has been identified in those meetings as an unmet transit need that people do need.
So I'm still not clear. Sorry if I'm misinterpreting, but are we going to have free night service to and from the lake, between the lake and Truckee, if we do this?
Yes.
Okay, great. Second question / comment is the dollar amount for every year is the same, plus a 3% increase. But we're 6 months through this year already, which means we missed the first shoulder. Shouldn't we only have to pay half?
So the town of Truckee operates on a fiscal year of July 1 to June 30. So for our purposes, it starts July 1. So the shoulder actually won't start until after summer.
September, right?
Yes.
Okay, that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I got a couple questions. How will the system work in our current summer, fall with COVID and such? I know it's a really very big question, but have you guys planned out how that will work?
So currently, we definitely have had both the town of Truckee services and the Placer service. We did have a significant reduction in ridership, and we did have to discontinue the night service for a period of time when the resorts closed. So we tried to operate for 2 weeks. Both the town and Placer County, there was no service, or there were basically no ridership. And so we did suspend service. We are seeing, both services are seeing an uptick in passengers, and we are also hearing from some of the businesses within the resorts that they are opening their businesses, and their employees need transportation. And so we are providing that transportation. Certainly, COVID will have an impact potentially if there's another uptick and things are closed down again, and there is a reduction in ridership. We will be, as far as billing, if the airport board determines to move forward with this, the invoicing will actually be based on actual costs. And so if we've reduced service hours and reduced service days, that would be a reduction in the overall cost.
Anything else, Jim? Mary? Lisa?
My other question, and I support this. I think this will be beneficial. Long term, I think it's going to be great. I am always curious when Placer County considers that it's only the lakeside. There are a significant number of Placer County residents that live in Truckee. They can't vote in Truckee. They can't vote for the rec park, but they live here. And so Placer County, would argue, has a responsibility to their taxpayers that live on this side of the ridge. And part of Donner Lake is Placer County. And I just point that out because the ridge does not define Placer County. It's an arbitrary line, and a significant portion of people in this Truckee area actually live in Placer County. So I want Placer County to be aware of that.
Like me, Mary.
Yeah. Like many people in Sierra Mills and Ponderosa Palisades.
I'm sure
those are
they're aware.
Is to Placer County.
Okay. Lisa?
No comments. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any public comment?
There's
David's
no public
not on the
comment.
screen.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, no public comment on this subject, although during the discussion, there's been 2 comments that came in via text, mostly related to the operations and comments report. So.
Okay, do we need a motion for this?
Let's finish this, yeah.
Yes.
I'll move. Okay, go ahead, Rick. No, I'll make a motion to approve. Actually, I don't have the text here in front of me.
I don't either.
I'm looking for it.
Oh. How about
There,
approve
there.
the proposal from the town of Truckee to partner on extending TART night service to year-round from the current seasonal schedule?
Yeah,
There's a dollar amount there.
motion that, because I'd like to bring you back a formalized agreement at the next meeting, kind of like we did it before, but there's a sample motion in there that also has findings that are, as our legal counsel said, are important for us to get in on motions on these kind of items.
I found it. You want me to read it? I move
Yes,
to
please.
approve allocating $92,997 in 2020 with a 3% escalator for 2021 and 2022 from the district's transit funds for the 3-year night service pilot program on the Tahoe Truckee area regional transit system. I move to have staff work with partners to complete final contracts, agreements for approval on the consent agenda at the July 29, 2020 Board of Directors meeting based on the following findings. 1, the proposed night service program will encourage use of public transit, enhancing connectivity to the airport for all district constituents. 2, the proposal may decrease the number of vehicles on local roads, help improve traffic congestion, and benefit our environment. 3, supporting this program assists the district in achieving goals related to regional partnership, carbon reduction, and transit strategy. See 2020 goals attained.
Second.
Roll call, Kevin?
Director, or Vice President Heatherington, sorry.
Yes.
Director Morrison,
Yes.
President Odette,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Director Wallace.
Yes.
Good job reading that, Mary.
They put it together. I continue to support.
Very clear with what we're doing.
That was a big one.
I heard David say there were some other comments that came in, and since it's delayed, for people to type up a text, there's a question for Brett, can we take those comments now, even though that has closed?
You can reopen it for the comments, but if the comments are persuasive that you want to change that, I would suggest having to re-agendize it for the people that have already watched it, but you can certainly listen to the comments.
Okay, so David said there were a couple more comments that came in.
Okay, let's have some public comment, David.
All right, thank you. First one is, this is Linda Rusan. The public input is much less user-friendly this meeting than last month. I wanted to say to Jim's comment about traffic that residents can choose to stay home and avoid traffic, but the problem is when they stay home, the noise is overhead. The second comment that came by text is from Andy. I want to say that I'm actually tired of hearing the public complain. This anti-tourism attitude is counterintuitive to the survival of our tourism-based economy. It is obvious that the airport does not have control over how many flights in any more than the town has control over how many people are visiting our town, making it their new home. This negativity needs to stop.
Did that person give their name? Andy?
Just Andy.
Just Andy.
Okay, thanks. Closing public comment and moving on to Truckee Tomorrow funding support proposal.
All right. Make sure I'm not muted. I'm not muted, right? Okay. So you might remember back in April, we talked about, as COVID was really causing a lot of problems with our business community. We had talked a little bit about other things that we could do as an airport district to help our local business community. So I spent a little time reaching out to both of the Chamber of Commerce's in the airport district, the North Lake Tahoe Chamber and the Truckee Chamber of Commerce. And I'm still working with Jeffrey Hines at the North Tahoe Chamber, NLTRA. They have some things they're working on, but the Truckee Donner Chamber came forward and wondered if the district would be interested, as they've had to pivot to really helping businesses reopen and be solvent and be able to sustain themselves through some of the things we've experienced. If the district would be willing to up our annual contribution to the something we've been involved in since 2010, from $10,000 to $50,000, it would be a $40,000 increase, so that the initiatives that they've been working on, and they're listed in the staff report, the develop a employer co-op, the growing our own, and develop Truckee's an entrepreneurial ecosystem. If we would be interested in adding some additional funding so that they can keep those programs going, that they think could also help people weather the economic storm that has been COVID. So you have that proposal in front of you. From a staff perspective, we support their request, and I'm also very interested in continuing conversations with NLTRA on some things we might be able to do over there. But that's what I have.
Anybody have any thoughts, questions, comments?
I had thought I'd heard that Josh had some heartburn in terms of this is private entities, companies helping, as compared to other public entities. And I had heard he had heartburn with this type of an idea. And I just want some clarity then between this is helping private companies versus nonprofits or other special districts. And I need some clarity there.
So I talked to Josh about that. What Josh was concerned about is the resilience fund, and that's kind of what we talked about back in April, is that there was an effort to put together a resilience fund that could give loans to individual businesses. So they were wondering if other public agencies would contribute to that resilience fund, and that is what we were not able to contribute to, because it would essentially be taking our money and going directly to potentially to a business. What we are permitted to, and Brent, you can correct me if I'm wrong, are the programs that are in this, particularly the employer co-op, are things that are available to us as chamber members. And in the findings, kind of some of the things we've talked about is having a vibrant economy that isn't solely based on tourism. That's one of the things the chamber is working on. Actually helps the viability of the airport district. That we have a more diverse. I mean, those are some of the things that Truckee Tomorrow has been working on. But as I talked to Josh about this, and Brent, feel free to also comment, is Truckee Tomorrow has always been something we funded, and it has not been it qualifies under our funding rules and regulations we have.
When Josh and I communicated on today's meeting, he did not express that as an issue. And I think with the three findings in the motion satisfies the concerns. And I think he's the one that drafted it up, but I feel very comfortable with those findings being included, that it's an appropriate expenditure legally. It's obviously up to the board if they want to do it or not, but legally it's fine.
And then the other question is, have any other special districts contributed to this?
Yes, there are other special districts that are members of Truckee Tomorrow. I'd have to get you the exact list. I don't know that they've increased their contribution to it. It was more of us in April talking about what are some ways that we can help support our local business community. This was one of the ideas that had come up, but there are various members of, there's quite a few actually, public agencies that are members of and contributors to Truckee Tomorrow.
They're members, and are they contributing $50,000, or are they contributing $10,000?
Yeah, they contribute all different levels, but no one else is being asked to do this. And again, it was kind of a mutual. They approached us, but we also, again, going back to that April conversation, we were trying to figure out, are there things we can do, not just with the chambers, but with our business community? And obviously the chamber represents the business community. And then as an airport district, we've tried to do other things. We've got a lot of work going on the airport right now, trying to keep local businesses and contractors busy with work that needs to be done that's already been approved as part of our budget. And so it's kind of a holistic approach we've been trying to take, but this is one other thing that we can do that we think could help COVID relief.
Rick, Jim?
Someone did ask that, but I was on the chamber board, but it's been years, right, 4 years since I've been on the Truckee Tahoe Chamber board.
Rick's trying to unmute.
I don't really have any comments.
I kind of like the resilience fund that we can't do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Lisa, what do you think?
On the one hand, because we contribute already quite a lot to Truckee Tomorrow. Initially, I'll admit I was reluctant, but I do think we're in an extraordinary time, and I do know how much local businesses are really struggling to find their way. So I think I'm in favor of it. I'm in favor of it probably along the lines of a one-time thing. We contribute a lot tomorrow. It does feel, perhaps slightly unfair to contribute more, but it's legit. Our businesses they're really struggling. Local small businesses, retail and restaurant, etc.
And that's just to follow up with what Lisa's saying, we've made it clear this is a one-time, just for this year. And really it's trying to help these programs that Truckee Tomorrow has been working on continue their momentum, whereas the chambers had to pivot to basic, support, and sometimes what you might call life support for some of these businesses to keep them open.
I guess I'm going to back up and say I think it seems like a foregone conclusion, and we'd be crazy not to do this. In the scheme of earlier conversations about building a new runway at the cost of $30 million that would divert an extremely tiny amount of traffic over a different place, I wouldn't understand why we wouldn't try to strive to be better community members to our community by supporting an idea of how can we do a better job as a community to have a more robust economy.
Agreed. Any other board member comments?
I guess I would just ask Kevin, when you meet with the other general managers, I kind of go back to that $120 million in special districts that all get out of property tax dollars, and it's in all their benefits to have this type of a vibrancy in the two chambers. And to go from 10,000 to 50,000, it allows the chamber to pivot their other money, and I can support it. But I also think there's other special districts who it's the same sort of thing. The sanitary district, the fire district, these all benefit them as well. And I want us to have a more global attitude of our property tax dollars.
Yeah, and we do about it. I will tell you this, that where the conversation needs to happen that may be more important than my conversations with the general managers is with their elected boards. And I obviously can't talk to their elected boards without talking to their general managers, just a common etiquette that we have. But as you see those other your fellow elected officials out there, that's a great conversation to have also. But we do about it from our general manager's standpoint also.
I guess I would request that when you're talking to the chamber and we're getting them $50,000, we say, have you reached out to these other special districts? It's in their benefit. Well,
yeah.
So they can make that outreach to those community. Again, I'm trying to work toward a more holistic approach to our region.
Yes, agree.
Okay. Any public comment?
Negative.
Okay. Who wants to make a motion?
I will make a motion. I move to approve the request from the Truckee Chamber of Commerce to increase the district's funding on a one-time basis in 2020 from $10,000 to $50,000 to support the Truckee Tomorrow Phase 2 goals based on the following findings. The district has been a longtime supporter of Truckee Tomorrow, and the goals it seeks to achieve have broad benefit to our constituents. The district can directly benefit from the program under development, such as the employer co-op. Supporting programs that diversify our local economy and encourage robust business communities are essential to the ongoing viability and sustainability of the airport district. Lauren, please note that one-time addition. Thank you.
Somebody want a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Hey,
Roll call?
ready for roll call. Vice President Hetherington,
Yes.
Director Morrison,
Yes.
President Odette,
Yes.
Director Stevens,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Great. We got some time to make up. Let's do designation of unrestricted net assets.
Oh, did we do? Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm going to turn that one over to Kelly. Unless you want me to handle that, Kelly.
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Yes.
Hi. So we had this in our budget that we went through last year, and then we go through the audit process for 2019 and then decide if we want to make any changes and what kind of gets moved around. So I created what was in the audit packet based on kind of how we had things last year, and now is our opportunity to talk through it and make changes and kind of decide if anything needs to be moved around. Is that accurate statement, Kevin?
Yeah, that's good. This is something we do every year. There's two things really that we look at. Is in the staff report, you'll see the unrestricted net asset designations for 2020. And I essentially, Kelly and I work together and come up with these numbers. And so it's just something that the board, you can adjust these, modify them, and at any time in the year, you can move them around. And then the second thing that the board would need to do is just adopt policy instruction 309, which takes these numbers that you'll see in the modifications unrestricted net assets on page 3 of the staff report, and then it codifies them in our policy instruction. And just for those that are watching at home, this is so that the public can know why does the airport district have $7 million in the bank. And when you go through the unrestricted net assets, it helps people understand all the different categories of funding and planning that we do to make sure that the airport has the funds it needs to operate. And and then also to have contingencies for the future. So that is what unrestricted assets is all about.
I have a question in that last year, for fiscal year 2018, it was 9.3 million. And at the end of 2019, it's 6.9 million. What did the 2.3 million go for?
Yeah, Kelly, did you want to answer that question? Did you want me to?
Yeah, I'm just looking to see here. It's essentially just what our overall cash balance was, and that did go down after the exec hangars project happened.
So it went down 2.3 million, even though it was bonded?
Well, we would various things that reduce the reserve. And we could go through 20, we'd have to go through each one of those things and understand, the things that we spent money. And I don't have it in front of me, but we can, it's all in the audit.
I have to pull it up through the audit, but I could get you that answer. I just don't have it right in front of me.
All discussed last month in the audit as to where that money was spent. It wasn't all spent on Hank. It was lots of different things that we did around the airport.
Okay, yeah, I would like that information, and
Well, Mary, if you compare the two things, they've reduced an awful lot from the 2 years. For example, pavement maintenance went down. If you compare the two columns, I mean, they just reduced the numbers. This is basically telling the public and ourselves what we might be using these things for in the future. And we decide each year in the budget what is actually happening.
well, what I think is when you pull up the budget, her financial statement, at the end of the year, at the end of 18, there was 9.3 million, net up. And now at the end of 19, there was 6.5 million. Then they make this allocation to show where places need to go. But somewhere 2.3 million between 18 and 19 happened. And that's what I'm asking.
And they said they'd give it to you when they pull the audit.
And it's all in the audit. All you have to do last month, and it goes through it, and I can go through that and give you those dollars were spent. These are based on the approved.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other comments, questions, board members?
Yeah, if you can get that to me, Kevin.
Sure.
Okay, then any public comment?
There's no public comment.
I move to approve the proposed allocations and designation of the district's unrestricted nest assets for calendar year 2020, and move to approve the revised PI 309 as attached.
Second? I'll second it. Lauren?
All right, I was second. Vice President Hetherington,
Yes.
Director Morrison,
Yes.
President Odette,
Yes.
Director Stevens,
Yes.
Director Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, let's do ADSB, and at 6:15, I'm going to have to leave you guys. So we're still doing this. Mary will be in charge.
Okay. Hardy, did you want to take that item?
Yeah, the transponders.
Yes.
So this is a request that we've talked about in the past. It's the item is essentially equipping the SOAR Truckee gliders and tow planes with ADSB out transponders so that the control tower and other controlling entities can see the gliders and tow planes when they're active in our airspace. There's no requirement for ADSB equipment on gliders. It's obviously a pretty significant safety enhancement to have those gliders and tow planes be seen up on the screen within our tower, within Oakland Center's airspace and NorCal Approach and others. So essentially we assembled all of the estimates for the gliders, the tow plane, put them into the staff report. I'm not going to go over the staff report line by line, but there's some safety enhancements that can be made on the airfield by equipping those. The Truckee Tahoe Airport District has a long history of working with our on-field operators to aircraft modifications, both to reduce community annoyance and also to enhance safety. So I wanted to talk a little bit, and you'll see that in the staff report describing some of those agreements we've had in the past: exhaust modifications, prop modifications, vortex generators, things of that nature. So essentially what we did, I worked with Shifty, who's on the call today. He's the new Truckee Tahoe Soaring Association board president. Willie Snow and Richard have retired, so Greg has taken over the TTSA operation over there. I invited him onto the call to answer questions, and Shifty and I have worked together in a number of different capacities here on the airfield, so he can answer more questions for us. I know we have some questions on this item, so I wanted to allow the board as much time as possible. You'll see that there's one estimation in the estimation packet short. That's because two of the model gliders are the same, so there's not an estimate for every single tail number outlined in the staff report. But we put all the aircraft in there, wanted to give the board a complement of options in case they wanted to fund it at a different level. But essentially, it's a safety initiative. It costs about $40,000 to $43,000. I put a padding on there in case there's incidentals related to the installation cost. Once the installation was complete, we would sign a security agreement with Truckee if that was the board's will to get the project done. And then over the course of the lifetime of that hardware, eventually the hardware would become obsolete and it would need replacement. At that time, the district would get it back. If the aircraft was ever taken out of service, the district would get that equipment back. It could be sold or surplus at that time. So the district owns the equipment. It's basically on loan to the operator to enhance the safety within the service volume of the airport. And that's essentially the safety case and some of the other elements related to the staff report that I wanted to give to the board. I know there's a lot of questions and I want to leave time for Shifty to answer some of those and any questions you may have for me as well. I think earlier in the agenda, we talked a little bit about ADSB and where that was. If the board wants details or brief details on that, I can give you a progress update as well. That's it.
You want me to kick it off, Artius, for a few words, or we can go to questions? There's a couple things I definitely want to put out, but
go ahead, Shifty.
Yeah. First of all, thanks a lot to the whole board for allowing me to discuss some of the issues with TTSA. I do want to say one thing, though, that has nothing to do with this really, but some of the comments provided. I've been flying for 46 years. I've flown all over the world, all over the United States, both civilian, corporate, airlines, military. And this airport, from what I've seen, and there's not, you can't improve, and you want to make sure you can do it the best you ways. When you stop improving, then you might as well cash in your chips. But what they put on their website to show pilots how to come in here and how to do the best for noise abatement is the best I've ever seen in any civilian airport I've ever been in. So my hat's off to the board for having the staff focus on that. But you guys and girls have done a really good job, and it's appreciated by and put my hat as on a civilian pilot that I want to come in here and fly. So good on you. That's my advertising. Okay. Thanks.
Got to stick to the agenda.
Yeah. So anyhow, the proposal, you've seen it, to give us ADSB in our 2 tow planes and our 6 gliders that we either own or lease. The type of ADSB we would get in there is called the 1090 ES. The pilots that are there would be aware of that, and there's a good reason for that. So that's what we're looking at, and that's what we've been asking for in dealing with Hardy. Just a little bit of a background on TTSA. We're a 501c3, and we've been a 501c3 since 2015. What do? One, we provide towing and support services for private gliders and private clubs that come up here and want to soar. 2, we provide flight instruction for anybody who wants flight instruction in a glider, particularly in this case, adults that come in here and they want to learn how to fly. We give commercial rides to the public, and that's actually our primary source of revenue, which we're not doing right now because of COVID-19. But we provide that service for the community, anybody that wants to come in and do that. But I'll say last but not least, and this is my primary focus, is we provide flight and ground training to budding teen glider pilots in the community, starting at age 13 and going through 18. Okay? Personally, I think this is some of the best STEM training you can get, and these kids are out there and they're really, really happy. Currently, we have 14, I call them interns because they're not getting paid directly money, but they do get paid in other ways. They're enrolled in a formal and very comprehensive training program, which includes training and working on the line to support glider launches and recoveries, and other support function like putting oxygen into a glider. They learn how to do that. Attended to that is ground school and aviation training in gliders, okay? In the last 15 days since we've been open, we have flown 87 flights for these teenagers, and 2 of the teens are close to getting their solos, and they've never flown before, which I think is really impressive that they're able to do that because they've been spending a lot of time in the books. Operational here at Truckee, right now we have 19 private gliders. We have 3 club gliders. We've flown 141 flights since opening. And of course, we own or lease 6 gliders, and those gliders are used for giving rides or giving training, whatever. And then the 2 tow planes that tow all the gliders up to get them up to altitude so they can start their soaring activity. I applaud the board of directors and the staff for approving, which I know was a big ticket item, for putting ADSB, a ground station here in Truckee, which really is going to make it a lot better for the controllers who are up there in the tower, and I applaud that. It's going to be a lot better picture that they're going to see than the current MLOT that they use, which is kind of shared with like the same thing you have in the Unicom. Okay, for our gliders that TTSA owns or leases, none of them have ADSB, nor do our tow planes. They do have they have transponders. Okay. For the private gliders that we have out there, only 1 has no transponder, 9 have transponders that are not ADSB capable, and 8 actually have ADSB out already in their private gliders. So about half the gliders there already have ADSB in. Those are private gliders, not ours. Okay, there's one other technology, just so you know what it is, and you might hear it, around the restaurant there at the Red Truck, is this technology called FLARM. It was a European technology that was used between glider pods over in Europe. Now we brought it to the United States. It is a glider-centric airborne collision avoidance system. So they see other gliders out there that have the FLARM in it, and they can pick them up. So it's another something that they can use to, other than see and avoid, to avoid a collision. With that FLARM, it also has a the FLARM is not seen by the tower. It's not seen by air traffic control. It's just glider to glider. However, those airplanes, and every airplane except 1 has in it for the private gliders, they can see ADSB out data that another airplane would be transmitting if it is 1090, and that's why that's why the proposal is for 1090 ADSB out only, as opposed to the other type of ADSB, which is UAT 978. So that's pretty much what we do out there, and what our current fleet is, and what the capability and what the avionics we have in both our gliders and the gliders that are private gliders that come up every summer for the 4-month period to learn how and to have fun soaring in one of the best soaring locales probably in the United States. Any questions?
No.
I have. I don't know if anybody else. Yeah, Rick, do you have?
Hey, I've heard a lot of reasons where people are upset at what a great deal the Soar Truckee has. I'm really focused on something totally different. Cost us $400. I'm giving you rough numbers. $400,000 to put the tower in place. It costs us $900,000 a year to run the tower with the air traffic controllers, and we're just putting in ADSB, which is not yet online, and it will be online soon. Hardy, $1 million, and 18% of the traffic doesn't have transponders, and ACAT declined to get involved in this. I don't quite understand that, Mr. Diamond. And I think it's very bad that we spend all this money and 18% of the traffic can't be seen. And to me, it's purely a safety issue. I know some people would rather have the Soar Truckee pay for it. I'm of the mind we can't afford not to pay for it because of safety. That's my comment.
Okay.
Can I add something here? As far as our budget go, we couldn't afford to pay for it right now.
That was going to be my question, so I'll just jump in and ask it. What is your what's your budget look like? What's your bank account like?
It's kind of drawn down because we had a lot of off-season requirements. We had to do a lot of fixing of the organization. But right now, last time I looked, I'd say with our checking account and savings account, rough numbers about 55,000 total. I haven't checked it the last couple of days because money coming in and out.
What's the annual operating budget like?
It's about a couple 100,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Mary?
I have a question. Can the tower see the gliders? You know, they wouldn't be able to get their tail or their altitude, but do they see the target on the screen?
I can answer that. Yes, they do. It's just like how MLAT works. If the glider has a transponder, it doesn't have to be an ADS-B transponder, but yes, they can. They can't see the code, and it's not all that great of a presentation from what the tower supervisor told me, but yes, they can see.
I just need a little bit of clarity, Mary. Are you saying right now? Can they see him?
No, we don't have the ADS-B up and going yet.
Well, right now they can see the glider. If the glider's equipped with the Mode 3 AC transponder, the MWAT system will see the glider right now.
Yes.
Okay. Right. And do the gliders that operate here, the 19 privates, the 3 club, and the 6 that are leased or owned, do they have the Mode 3 AC?
Yes, everyone except one right now of that group.
Okay, so the tower can see them.
To some extent. And it's hard to speak more better to how well they can see them, but you know, it's not the greatest system. It's what we have, what the airport has, but it's not the greatest system. It's not like if you're at NorCal approach and where you're really going to see things, the fidelity is much better as far as I know.
The key is that when we go over to ADS-B, if the gliders aren't equipped with ADS-B transponders, then they won't see. Then they will not be seen in the future.
Yeah, when that transition occurs, correct.
Okay. So the private gliders, you're saying 9 of them have no ADS-B. And when is the ADS-B supposed to come up when we're putting on a ground station?
Well,
that's something Hardy would know. What's the latest on the ADS-B?
Of the private gliders, which are 19 right now, 8 of them have ADS-B out. So I guess do the math there, 11 do not.
Okay, so even if we pay for these 6, the other 11 won't be seen.
That's correct. Unless they get ADS-B out, and that's up to the individual private pilot. I mean, we would definitely emphasize this, especially with going to ADS-B. We'd highly recommend that you do that, but you know,
but they're required, but not required to do it.
It's not required to fly in Truckee airspace. It's for a glider. It's required to have ADS-B if you fly like in San Francisco airspace or you fly over Reno, then they have to have it. But all the other places that normal powered airplanes have to have it by regulation. The gliders do not.
Right. So the idea of safety, I mean, you know, it's still unsafe to the extent of there'll be 11 gliders potentially who we can't see.
True, but that's better. Right? That's better than 25.
25. So I'm counting 19 private gliders
and
3
6
clubs.
Right, and I don't have the data on the clubs, but right now it's 19 private gliders because that club just got up there and we're still getting the forms to see what they have in them. So 19 private gliders and 6 TTSA gliders, total of 25.
One of the things I want to point out, Mary, one of the reasons why SOAR Truckee is such ripe fruit for this type of program is that they are a static operator on the field, and they have those 5,000 plus or minus annual operations here in the airport. So while we do have other errant private aircraft, private gliders that would be operating in the airspace, they're not such a major part of our annual operations as SOAR Truckee, the gliders and the tow planes that are owned and leased by SOAR Truckee. So that 18% that Rick talked about is 18% of our total annual operations. annualized over the year, which actually it's probably more like 40% if you just take June, July, and August. So during June, July, and August, the glider contingent is a lot of operations. So that's why I think there's some pretty solid benefit to getting those aircraft equipped, because they're operating during the busiest time of year. They're also make up the biggest part of our annual operations for the local, a local operator here on the field.
Well, you also need to look at, okay, just have numbers of gliders, but the private glider probably come up, fly, maybe once a week or once a week, maybe twice a week, where the gliders that TTSA owns are just continually going instructing, giving rides, training to the kids, et cetera. So as far as the total numbers of glider flights per glider, it's going to be much higher for the TTSA gliders than it would be for a private glider.
And then you said there were the age 13 to 18. How many kids? You had 4 or 14?
14. Four girls and 10 boys.
Okay. And by law, don't your tow planes have to have ADS-B as of January 1st of this year?
Oh, well, yes and no. If you don't fly in ADS-B required airspace, you don't have to have them. However, for our tow planes, we really need the capabilities for them to fly in ADS-B airspace, because in our high tows that we do for one of our rides, we go above the 10,000 foot altitude, and that's where it's required, unless you're below 2,500 feet. I mean, yes, can we do it? Yeah, it would just impact our operation some. And then sometimes we got to go do a retrieve of gliders. They land out someplace, who knows, the other side of Reno, up instead. And now, if our tow planes wouldn't be legal to fly a retrieve to bring it back home, because we didn't have ADS-B in them, because they'd be flying Reno airspace.
And I'm curious, Hardy, coming into, last month we talked about trying to develop this charted procedure off of 1-1. That would be, and gearing it towards summer usage. But the gliders are over there and they kind of own that space. Can we develop that charted departure with that space with the gliders? I'm thinking Minden, or is that something that the FAA is going to say, well, you can't do that departure to 1-1 because of the glider activity?
Yeah, so from a strategy standpoint, the tower is really designed to deconflict those active volumes of airspace. The FAA is going to have something to say about the way that our traffic pattern, including the gliders, is structured when it comes to creating new flight procedures. So to answer your question, yes, the FAA will have something to say about that. Is that stumbling block? I don't know if it's a reason why the FAA would disallow that 1-1 departure, and I think that we're probably going to find more out about that as the process goes on.
But it could be a disallow. It could make 1-1, the departure off 1-1, go away because they own that space.
They don't own the space. Nobody owns the space. But essentially what we've done with the tower is we've tried to organize non-powered glider and parachute activity in the Northeast Quadrant to separate and segregate them from the fast movers that come in on runway 29. So you have very slow traffic and very fast traffic. Keeping those two groups separated is the goal of the tower. So the Northeast Quadrant is really designed to segregate those two types of aeronautical activity.
But the hot rocks are almost straight off of the end of 29.
The hot rocks are actually to the north of the extended center line of 29. So that's by design, they're separated from the 29 entry traffic.
So again, with the 1-1 departure, it wouldn't necessarily conflict with the hot rocks.
It indeed may conflict, and that would be something that the tower and the glider community and the powered community is all going to have to sort through.
Again, I'm comparing percentages of who the communities that we're helping one way or the other, and the communities that you could be helped by this 1-1 departure versus, 25 gliders and that population. The other thing is, just as a side note, I mean, my son's college roommate got a job through college just so he could put a transponder into his own glider. So it's interesting to me because he knows it's for his own safety, that he has done that because he knows that's the right thing to do. And
Great,
when I add up, and no, that's a fair point. If people are going to claim safety, at a certain point, I can choose to drive my car with bald tires, but it's not safe. So I can make a choice to drive safely by getting good tires. If I am a glider and I can't be seen, I can make the choice to make myself seen.
No question, but those private gliders are not on the agenda right now. We're only talking about Soar Truckee.
Well, and I'm looking at the toll lanes. It's part of a business. They've known about this ADSB requirement for 10 years. And in terms of being able at least to pay for their own tow planes, seems like an obvious need. And they should have seen that coming. So I cannot support those two. Also, when I add up the numbers, because I looked at, the Sierra Aero has put the quotes together, and it adds up to 38,008. And then there's one more, I guess, that doesn't, that there was no Sierra Aero's, work order. So if I take 38,008 and I add another 6,000, because they run 5 to 6,000, that's 44,000. But we're asking for 49,000 plus another 4,500. So the numbers are not all jiving.
Oh, that 49, if you take the one glider that did not have a estimate, which is the same as kind of its sister ship, is about 6,900, okay? You can see that one, it says 6,900 with the ASK 21.
I can see that one.
Right.
Yeah.
So the ASK 23 is a single seat version of the ASK 21. And they're saying it's going to be almost identical in cost because it's set up the same way. So you add the 69.
When I add up all 8 units, then the 2 tow planes, which I cannot support, I think that is this is a private entity, and it should be at least responsible for their own tow planes. And when I add that up, it's $44,908. And yet you're asking for 49,400 plus another 4,491 contingency.
No. It's the 49. It's the 49. The 10% is on top of the 44,900. You're counting twice.
Well, that's what the staff report says. So I'm not counting it twice. It's the staff report. So
you want to talk to that, Hardy, because your numbers are in there.
What I show on the estimation is a cost of the equipment and the 10% contingency. I just wanted to break out those two figures so that the board understood there was a 10% contingency. This is essentially 44,000 plus $4,900 is the total cost of 49,401. And that contingency is not something that Soar Truckee or the installation company Sierra Aero has asked for. That's what I put in my staff report so that I gave the board the outside figure, the outside sideboard on what that expenditure may be. Because in my opinion, when we've done aircraft modifications, the jump plane was a great example of this. Things come up, they're unanticipated, and I just wanted to give the most transparent information to the board when it comes to the cost.
So Hardy, the other question I have then is ADSB, you're expecting it to come up to be active and approved and live, not till September, correct?
Yeah, they'll have tracks on the glass. So a controller will be looking at flight tracks before that. But to do that system acceptance testing and the flight testing that's required to actually keep 2 airplanes separated on that screen is going to start in September. We have been, I'll call it moderately delayed by COVID and some of the restrictions we have on work here at the airport and the contractors and vendors. So I'm gonna put that out, but we're gonna give you a better understanding of that, I think, in July, if that's on Kevin's agenda.
I guess my point with that is if ADSB isn't live until September, October, somewhere in there, that through this summer, the gliders are seen in the tower now because they have the mode 3AC. That's what I heard Shifty say. So through this season, at least, we know that they can be seen by the tower. And personally, I think this is a safety issue, but I also think that some people have to own their own safety. And I think that the tow planes are legally required to have it. So in that aspect, they should be budgeting to at least do that. And I don't see the crisis or that it needs to be done this summer, because we know the tower, I heard the tower can see the gliders this summer. Did I hear wrong, or is that what I heard?
Anything with a mode 3 AC transponder, under most conditions, will be picked up by the MWAT system that's fed into the tower right now.
Which is going to be active through this entire summer.
That's correct. That's correct. The only piece is I am not entirely clear on the equipment that exists inside the Soar Truckee gliders, and so I'm going to let Shifty answer that. But to answer your question, Mary, anything with a transponder that is turned on and being used in a glider right now, the tower can see for this summer until we make that cutover with ADSB sometime in the future.
Right. And at this point in this summer, if this passes and these 8 are purchased with public monies for a private entity, there are still 11 gliders that will not be seen.
As currently configured.
So, the argument of safety, it's, so those are my thoughts.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, Rick, it's Lisa. Can you remind me, give me your take on why, what you recall why ACAT declined? I think you put it to get involved, but why ACAT declined?
I cannot answer that question. I just learned that they declined to act on it, and that's why I started bringing it up at past board meetings, that we need to look at this because we're spending the money on ADSB, and and I didn't even have this number. I had 40% of total traffic, but June to August it could be 70% or 40%, and to me it's just pure safety. And I understand what Mary's point is. I'm very big on safety.
Rick,
Hardy or Kevin, do you have facts at your fingertips on the ACAT response?
I did. I talked to David Diamond about this morning on a conference call about 7 a.m. And ACAT basically had, and David can confirm this with me, he's on our call with us, but essentially they saw 2 pieces. One, they were in the midst of a bylaw change and wanted to shift the financial responsibility of making decisions like that to the board. They thought that was more appropriate, so we made a bylaw change. The other piece was there was significant discussion among the members about funding an on-field operator or an operator who is open to the public, and essentially, whether it's nonprofit or not, was their own entity separate from the airport using airport revenue. So those two issues came up, and that's what David and I talked about this morning.
Great, thank you. Thanks for that. I don't have any more questions, Teresa. Thanks.
Sure. Well, let's see here. What if we require all the planes that use Soar Truckee to have ADSB, either theirs or private, and we pay for half of these 9 now? Any thoughts?
Is that something we could do?
No.
Through our lease or something, Kevin?
We looked at that, and we explored that a little bit. But if the FAA is saying it's equipment that is not required, then we can't require those aircraft operators to equip. We can incentivize through agreements. If we have a lease agreement and we put some kind of an incentive in there and say we'll do this if you do this, we can do that, but we can't compel or coerce or require somebody to put a piece of equipment on their airplane that the FAA is saying they don't have to have used to fly.
Can we incentivize by saying we'll continue to give you a great deal on your lease if you require everyone to have ADSB compliant?
Yeah, it's not that different asking.
Raise your rent significantly?
Yeah, I mean, you could do something similar to our hangar incentive, where if you don't fly during these hours and you operate a certain way, then we'll give you a discount on your rent, where they're giving up a right. They can fly, they can fly whenever they want, but we don't want people flying whenever they want. It'd be similar with Soar Truckee. If you wanted to do something to incentivize them, then you could do it that way.
Hey, Greg, can you talk to us a little bit about, I think you've been on the whole call. You've heard a couple public comments that are directly, I think an easy word would just be negative towards the glider noise and annoyance. You're a significant portion of the airport's operations, and you're one of the premier soaring glider operations in the country. I'll take your word for it. I think we have a responsibility to the aviation community, and we have a responsibility to our taxpayer community and all our citizens. So it's difficult as a board member perspective to subsidize an operation to be safe. At the same time, it's difficult from my position to not subsidize you to be safe, because there's so many of you flying around. I don't want to make our whole community unsafe, but it seems like we're put in somewhat of an awkward position to be subsidizing noise.
Well, Hardy and I, this was kind of a shotgun to the face when I heard those comments, and I'm not saying they're not valid. I mean, what we do right now is we have certain red areas that you cannot. Okay, obviously gliders aren't going to make doggone noise. Okay, it's the tow plane with the glider behind it, and we have certain red areas that, hey, do not fly over those areas, because we know they're known. We get known noise complaints. Now, maybe we need to take a look at. I mean, when she says the Martis Valley, I have no clue where she's talking about in the Martis Valley, so I can't talk to that. But if we get more specifics, and we need to maybe, between the airport and TTSA, modify even more, where our flight paths are within, being safe. I mean, we can't do certain things with the tow plane to go someplace right away because they're too low, and if the rope breaks, now your glider is going to land out in the tree someplace. Okay, so we have certain constraints when we take off the tow plane to get to a certain altitude. Usually it's kind of over the runway, and then we venture out, to the hot rocks and east. But if we need to, modify some of our tow plane tracks, then Hardy and I'll get together and we'll come up with a game plan. But I can't speak to the specifics, because those people really, well, I know that Prosser Lakeview is not a problem. If they got problems over there, then we normally don't even fly. I've flown the glider over there, but I've never been on a tow to go over to Prosser Lakeview. I think that's more of a jet issue anyhow. But
I think for some people, it's just the sheer fact that you guys charge, I think $200 or some significant amount of money to go out for a short ride, and it sounds like from some perspective that it's a lucrative operation for the privileged.
It's not lucrative. Okay,
I understand that you guys weren't able to stay in business. You turned your business to a 501c3 to be transparent about nobody's making money here, and that it's a passion project more than a
and again, we put so much of our thought in how we run the operation for the kids program, and it's really working out this well. I'm advertising here, but I think that's very important for our community, that we get these youngsters out there and learn how to fly, and it's incredible experience for these kids. I mean, I don't know how you assess a value to that, monetary value, but I think it's really good for our community, and the parents get involved, and just TTSA is a community type operation. We like to get the community there, to go out there and see what we're doing, come out. Of course, it's a little bit difficult now with COVID-19, but still, that's kind of our emphasis.
Well, you can assess a monetary value to it, because I think your rent is like $14,000, but in our budget, because you are giving those children the opportunity to learn to fly, our budget shows that what you're paying to us is $375.
All right, we get credit for giving flights because we don't charge the kids anything. You know, they don't
Right.
pay. Them.
Right, and so
Yeah,
that's
we
where
get-
the
Yeah, we
so
get
there's
credit for that.
subsidy. So there, it is monetized. You are getting,
Right,
you know,
but above that monetary value to us, there's a lot of other values that you can't really monetize.
okay.
That's
But
just one
But
small
our
part.
the rent that you pay us is $375.
Well, actually, last year we didn't pay you any rent because we made enough flights in training for the kids, so we washed that out completely because we don't get money back, but we didn't I'll be perfectly honest with you, we zeroed that out, so it's zero. You can pay any rent.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts, questions, comments? And anyone want to make a motion? Well, public comment. Public comment.
Greg, what would happen if we created some sort of agreement where we helped incentivize you to get others to use ADSB and we help you get ADSB in the 9
Private gliders.
not up there? Yeah.
I mean, I think it'd be a good idea. How you'd actually do it, I don't know. We'd have to really think about it, make sure we did it the right way. But I mean, I would in fact, I was kind of surprised at the number of private gliders had ADSB. I was thinking about 2 or 3, and all of a sudden, no, we had 8. And I said, oh, that's cool. So I think they're seeing it. Of course, ADSB just came along and the requirements for 3-4 months ago, 5 6 months ago. But maybe there is a way. I couldn't tell you what that would be. I mean, we'd have to put our thinking caps on and do it fairly and come up with a plan that really would work for the private gliders. And that's something that can be asked by the private gliders. What would it? How could we help you in help to diminish the financial burden on you putting ADSB in your glider? I mean, I'd have to ask the question. I don't have an answer to that.
And you don't have ADSB on your tow planes now.
No, we do not.
So
We
when
have
you make
monitors, but no ADSB.
so when you make a retrieval, how can you do that
Well,
now?
we can't fly in Reno airspace. Above it, we have to be around outside of it. We can't fly in it, and we can't fly above 10,000 feet because that requires, by a powered airplane, requires ADSB. So now we got to be very careful on a retrieval, and this is a safety issue. When we bring that glider back from wherever, if we can't fly above 10,000 feet, now we got to make sure that how we fly that track, that if the rope breaks, because you always got to assume the rope might break, that there's enough airspace below the glider, then he can safely go into some airport. So, yeah, can we do it? Yeah, but you have to be very careful how you do it and make it much more difficult on retrieves, just the track and the procedures we'd have to put in place.
So one last question: why haven't you put ADSB in your tow planes and doing that safe?
Just couldn't afford it. I mean, yeah. I mean, okay. So let's say it's $10,000, and we don't have a lot. We don't have a whole bunch in our bank account right now, and we have to have contingencies, of course.
You said you had 50,000 in the bank, or 100,000 in the bank.
Not 50. That's savings, checking. And since we're not giving, and this year's kind of a special case, since we're not giving rides, that's a good source of revenue for us. And we're not pumping money in for rides because we just haven't started giving them yet. And that's impacting our finances.
So my thoughts are, we don't have a consensus on this at all, and that maybe we need some alternatives presented. Just a thought. But on the other hand, I'm with Rick. It's purely safety. They have to be in there if they're going to be on our airfield, one way or another. So what do you guys want to do?
Maybe get
Public
some
comment. I know, but
Public comment.
Well, I have a question. What if it's civilian, just somebody, somebody that's on cross country, flies a civilian air, does not have ADS-B, which if he stays out of those airspaces, he could do that. Are you going to say you can't fly into our airspace because you don't have ADS-B in your airplane, where legally he doesn't have to if he doesn't fly into ADS-B airspace? Because Truckee Airport Class D area is not ADS-B airspace. It just happens to be because of the ground station. We need ADS-B to see everybody.
I'll answer that and say, no, we're not going to do that because we can't.
Right. Obviously, we can't. That's a moot point.
Yeah, right.
So, any
Well-
public comment? David?
And we're also not going to say you can't do it because we can't.
We have one public comment that just made it in. This is Matt Miller. He said $50,000 for 14 kids. Don't use our children to get tax money for your $200 per tourist flights. And we do hear tow planes circling in all neighborhoods around the airport.
Okay, thanks for the comment.
And we did have that comment that we read earlier that we thought we indicated we would attach to this agenda item from that one, from that individual. I can't remember the name. David, do you remember the name of the person that?
It was Nancy Woody.
So we can include that comment with this item.
Nancy had one about the trails as well that we said we would save till later. Let me pull up what.
Nancy had questions about the She had questions about the status of ADS-B and why it was not effective right now in directing traffic away from high-use neighborhoods. I mean, the short answer is ADS-B is not implemented yet, but she was missing that key piece of information.
Linda Russin also made a direct comment regarding SOAR Truckee and ADS-B.
What was that comment?
Let me pull up Linda's.
Is that Mars Valley?
No, Linda did not mention ADS-B in hers.
Did she mention gliders? Public.
Comment I got from Linda in the text was about Jim's comment. Traffic, their residents can choose to stay home and avoid traffic, but the problem is when they stay home, the noise is overhead. I think that's related.
No, it was something at the very front end. She said something about a lot of public space being used for a private entity. I don't remember the whole thing, but it was at the very...
Of SOAR Truckee occupying an area of the airport that may prohibit other types of uses of that airspace.
There you go.
Well,
Okay.
I think there's a lot of issues with SOAR Truckee that are not related to my feelings on this, which is purely safety. And that's why I've been pushing this, and we spent all this money on ADS-B. And therefore, I make a motion to approve the amount of $49,401 for ADS-B safety equipment aircraft modification partnership with SOAR TTSA.
I'd
Anyone?
make a comment, if you don't mind. I think I think that there's a little bit too much conflicting in this board meeting about the same issue. And if we needed to make a decision to make this summer safe, I would say let's spend the $49,000 and let's make the decision and let's make it safe. I'm totally in agreement with you, Rick and Teresa. But at the same time, I feel like we need to revisit how we help this SOAR Truckee operation stay in existence and do a great job for these kids and work with us to make their operation work. I don't think we're prepared to completely take your financial burden off of you, but I think in general, we're happy that you're doing it. We're also very concerned, as you can hear from some of our residents, about the noise and annoyance. So I guess I'm in a long-winded way trying to say, Kevin, could we look into and create a path for an incentive to get these guys to pay for some of this themselves and to have us help them do it and maybe get to the net goal of how do we create the best, most quiet operation that we can get that's also safe. I'd hate to see it go away, and I'd hate to just say, well, we're just going to pay for it, and sorry, taxpayers, we like paying for people to go out and go soaring. Can you see why we're in a tough position, Greg?
Yeah, I see your point. But I don't think, of course, I'm a little bit parochial here, but I don't think it's something you want to lose at the Truckee Airport. But they can bring a lot of value.
But I think it's something we sort of put ourselves, we have a fiduciary responsibility to all of our taxpayers, and we put ourselves in a tough situation to dive into this and just say we're doing it because they're forcing us to make them safe. I think if we don't do it, we're also being irresponsible. So I guess I'm just asking you to go back and work on it for another month.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen this summer anyway, because ADSB is not going to come up. So really, this may be premature. I'm just freaked out on safety, and that's why I made the motion. It doesn't sound like we have 3 votes here. So back to the drawing boards here.
Well, and I think get back to what the question that Jim asked me is, I think that that yes, the tower will be able to see gliders for the summer later this year before ADSB is fully functional. So we would be happy from a staff perspective, Hardy and I, to go back and work with and see what kind of and how some kind of a structure for how to get ADSB in these aircraft, including working with the other operators there, find out how motivated the ones that aren't equipped are to be equipped, and then come back and talk to the board about this later.
And it also, as an aside, is as I don't remember who brought the question up of, can we be training, can you have people in your cockpits? It's a pretty small cockpit in terms of COVID.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
How is that?
We robust sanitation and anybody in the cockpit wears masks.
Oh, okay. Great.
So are we collectively deciding to table this?
I think those ones
A month?
continue for future meeting. Yeah.
And to the extent of I cannot support putting it in their tow planes. That is on them in my mind.
Okay. And Brent wants us to do public comment again.
No,
we're talking.
No, I'm being a parliamentarian this time. Under Robert's Rules of Order, after a motion has been made, if any other board member makes a comment on that, it's deemed to be a second to that motion. So you can either take a vote, or Rick could decide to, or make a motion to rescind his motion and then be seconded by Jim.
Okay, I second.
The original motion?
Yeah.
Rick's motion.
Well, however you want to make this simple.
Well,
you're saying yes. Give him the money.
$9,000.
Oh no.
He seconded, but he hasn't voted.
If it's as simple as Rick just rescinding it, just rescind it. I'm just trying to help Brent and not be unclear.
So Rick just needs to rescind it if we're.
Well, there's been a second. There's been a second.
I don't want to rescind it if we've got 3 votes.
Well, let's vote.
So
we can always bring it back next month. Yep, let's vote.
Okay. Vice President Hetherington?
No.
Director Morrison?
No.
President Odette?
Yes.
Director Stevens?
Yes.
Director Wallace?
No.
So it fails. All
right. Fails. Doesn't mean we can't bring it back. So get us some options for
that's
next
what
month.
I expected. So I'm glad we had a vote.
All right.
Okay, I have to leave you guys. I'm going to have to leave Mary. Here's the gavel.
Woohoo!
Okay, thanks all. I'm out.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Artie, would you like me to stay on, or Artie?
Yep.
That's up to you. To stay on it or not?
Well, no,
We're
I'm just
going on
saying.
to the
Party, would you like me to stay on?
No, I think we're done with this.
Sorry.
I'll call you later with another.
So I would like, there's no way of knowing if Nancy is still listening. So I just would like Kevin to ask you to give just a quick summary of why ADSB is not helping yet with noise and annoyance.
Mom told me to.
I told her not to bring me any food.
Rick, you're not on mute.
Your mic's live. Sure. So just to follow up with Lisa's comment, yeah, that ADSB is in the process of being installed, and so it's not fully operational yet. The contractor's working on the airport and working on getting that system operational. We'll be able to feed data into our tower, and then eventually be able to feed data into the national airspace system that air traffic controllers can use. But that process is ongoing, and it's moving through the installation process. Hardy, did I capture that accurately?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the monthly ACAT report. Thank you, David, for being here.
Hey, David, I was going to put the ACAT report and share my screen out. Mary, do you want the board to see the ACAT report as it's going through?
Sure.
I guess while we're waiting for that to come on, just to verify that what Hardy said, and in response to Director Stevens' inquiry, ACAT just felt that given the expenditure that it was, and the fact that it was public money, that it was better decided by a group of elected individuals as opposed to the appointed ACAT team. So, and then you had an excellent discussion on it, so I'm really glad that we did hunt on that. All right, so getting to our last ACAT meeting of June 9th. All ACAT members were in attendance. It was a virtual meeting. Our action items, the minutes, emergency landing map, safe haven policy, and real estate guide, which I'll give you some updates on individually. Pilot survey questions. I think at the beginning of this meeting, you did clarify that there is a staff report in the ACAT materials that actually doesn't belong there. So ACAT is not asking you to examine or look at those survey questions. That is a staff thing. And then we received a presentation on how the district works in the community. We will follow up on that also next month. Okay, so on the emergency landing map, this is done. Pending the approval of whether you want to officially approve it or have an issue with it, you want changed or otherwise. It's ready to go, and I have spoken to Mark Lamb, and they're ready like within days to basically get this into production and release it and promote it. So it's what you see in the report is basically where we're at with this, and we're happy with it. We think that it'll do some good work with regard to giving pilots of primarily single engine aircraft a sense of where they can go if their engine fails off of the various runways we've got. And secondarily, that possibly they will reconsider those departures off 29, looking at this map and realizing that of all of our runway, it really offers the least options with regard to emergency landings, so that in calm wind conditions or winds obviously that support another runway, that maybe a departure off 02 or departure off 11, if the wind and their climb performance permit, that would be maybe a safer option. So did you, I guess I'll go through the rest of the thing, and then we can just find out if you have any comments specifically to any one of these projects. The next project was the Safe Haven initiative, and just as a summary reminder, this was just to have a program in place for pilots who find themselves stranded by unavoidable weather conditions or for whatever, no judgment basically on it. But rather than have them fly out in unsafe conditions, that we will make efforts to find them lodging and in a case where we have a weather event that could be damaging to the aircraft, see if we can't find hangar space for the aircraft overnight, with the intent of disincentivizing the pilot from leaving in what could be a bad situation. As we know in Truckee, weather can turn and get bad quickly, even in just summer when the winds kick up. If it's a novice pilot, maybe that pilot shouldn't be planning to fly out of the mountains in a 172 and a super windy day. So that's what the Safe Haven Initiative is, and it is also, the policy has been drafted, ACAT has approved this, and again, if without board objection, we're ready to move on that with regard to creating the social media and materials to support it and announce it to the pilot community. And on the third one, which is the Home Buyer's Guide, and this is just a working title, so we shouldn't get too married to this. Again, as a summary reminder, the idea of this is we're going to have an 8.5 by 11 trifold brochure that basically will serve to introduce the airport to prospective home buyers in the Truckee region, showing where we operate, where common flight paths are, and explaining that planes can fly anywhere. But just to give an overview of how the airport integrates with the community, it's not meant to be a fluff piece or a promotional piece. It's meant to be fairly neutral and informative. And so that we can educate those prospective home buyers and also educate the realtors in our community about what they should and should not say about the airport. You know, that everything that they're saying is based in fact. If somebody is particularly noise sensitive, you know, they might want to avoid certain areas depending on where flight paths and procedures are and that sort of thing. And we kind of hope to be able to depict that. We did have a meeting with John Falk, who was the government liaison from the Tahoe Sierra Board of Realtors, and they are very positive on this project. Pending seeing the semifinal version of it, they are interested in having their name on it as a co-sponsor or endorser of the document, and that they would then distribute it amongst their members, and then in turn those members would presumably distribute it to their prospective clients. So we were happy to hear that they are on board with that, and we have received a design bid for the map and for the brochure of $4,000. Which the subcommittee feels, or the ad hoc feels, that is reasonable for this. That does not include production costs. So pending input from you as the board, if you have no objection to this, to us moving forward with this, we will go and find out exactly what those production costs would be to produce this, and then see if we can get the realtor board on board with this with regard to endorsing it. And then just take it to the next step, getting the design. The designer said that they feel like 2 to 3 weeks would be all they would need to get something put together for that map then. And then on the next thing, what's happening in the next meeting, we're going to review there's an update to the Noise and Annoyance Handbook that staff has done. ACAT will take a look at that. And give our sort of input on that. One of the connections to this is to the real estate guide, because on the back of the real estate guide, we will have links to further information about the specific topics that are mentioned on the front side of the guide. And the Noise and Annoyance Handbook is a natural sort of connection or extension to the little brochure that we're doing for people that want to read in much greater detail about the policies and how they all work. So we'll take a look at that, and then we're also going to review the airport communications activity that was asked by one of the ACAT members there. So at this point, I'll hand it back over to you if you've got any questions for me or comments about the emergency landing map, the Safe Haven project, or the real estate guide that I could answer for you now.
Going around, Jim, do you have any questions?
Nope.
Rick?
No.
Lisa?
No questions. Thanks.
I don't have any questions. I think this emergency landing map is quite impressive. I think it's going to be helpful, and I think that the Safe Haven project is also a really good one. So thank you for developing those. The real estate guide, I will be curious to watch that. There is some concern by people, and there are websites that show the effect of overflights and noise on the value of real estate, and we should be sensitive to that because we could be affecting people's home value. So, but the other two, I think are really awesome, and thank you for leading ACAT.
I appreciate that. Yeah, if I could just respond to Director Hetherington real quick, Kevin. This was actually one of the reasons that we wanted to get the real estate board involved, because our intention was not to adversely impact the value of real estate in any area. Our intention was actually, and it's good to have this discussion actually within the context of this board meeting, because there's been so much community input about this. Mm-hmm. Our intention was to let people know ahead of time what they can expect in the Truckee area, and we don't believe that anybody will not want to move to Truckee because of, oh, there's an airport. I didn't realize there was an airport here. But the idea was that if some folks are particularly noise sensitive, this might influence where they choose in Truckee to buy, and if they're not as noise sensitive, it might not. They might look at the map and then decide to go visit a community and just stand there for a while and listen for airplanes. But we wanted to have something. It was kind of like, we felt like it was an opportunity for the airport to kind of give out a handshake to those who were coming to the community, to just let them know that we're here, we're working on this, the impact. We're looking, we encourage response from the community, both in participation with the board and participation with ACAT, and just basically start off with a very, very transparent relationship with those coming into the community through extension of the realtors, whom we hope are also interested in being completely honest with their disclosures to their prospective or current clients.
It's a valid point. I know someone who moved into Stony Creek, who is a pilot, and then was shocked at the overflights and not happy with their real estate agent. So there's value in this. So thank you.
I could add real quick, Mary, there's also an interesting thing on Realtor.com. If you go to that website, they actually have added a noise overlay on the mapping function that they already have. And it was interesting in that mapping function, ambient noise, they have some of the airport noise contours on that, and where they got it, the public can get it different places, but it dealt with that. It dealt with the freeway and the railroad, and it puts noise contours on those maps. It's kind of interesting, and I think the real estate is already moving that direction, and things that we could do to complement that, I guess we would support. But we are cognizant of that fact that we don't want to, there are definitely neighborhoods that are impacted by aircraft noise, and then the airport then makes it hard for them to sell their house. We don't want to do that to people, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're getting good information out to the public.
Right. Well, that's great. Thank you. Okay.
Other questions for me?
Is the curfew thing on you or on Hart? This happens to be in here.
Yeah, that would be. We were briefed on the survey, but it actually is not an ACAT item, so that would be for Hardy to bring up in his report.
Okay. And any other director comments? No. Any public comments, David?
There's no public comment.
Okay. So we're moving on to well, are we doing curfew now, or are we going to do it under general manager? I guess we do it now, Hardy.
Okay. What we're asking of the board tonight is really to just present some information for you, give you an update, and ask for any guidance you may have on our voluntary curfew modification program. The voluntary curfew is essentially just that. It's voluntary. There's nothing that mandates a hangar tenant or anybody else to fly at a certain hour. So the airport's open 24 hours a day. Pilots can fly and visit the airport anytime during that period. What the airport's done, and with great success, is organize the voluntary fly quiet curfew program to try and incentivize pilots not to fly after 10:30, and not before 6 a.m. or 6:30. That's the Fly Quiet Incentive 1 and the Fly Quiet Incentive 2. A little bit complicated, and what we are attempting to do is, in the staff report we've indicated, and we've showed you some of the questions, but we want to survey the pilot community and understand their interest in modifying the curfew program and making it slightly different. And it would simplify the curfew program down to a voluntary curfew after 10 p.m. or before 7 a.m. It would incentivize the hangar tenant community to opt into the program, and then if they failed to keep their incentive, the incentive that they've signed up for, essentially they would pay back the money that they were issued toward their hangar as an incentive credit, and they would also pay an additional month. So that's the concept, is that we would simplify the program, make it easier to understand both for the pilots and the hangar tenants, and then also really for our community, it's easier to understand if our voluntary curfew program is essentially aligned with the California noise standard, which is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. The fear in this, and I outlined it in the staff report, is we don't want to lose any pilot, any pilots or hangar tenants that are currently participating in our Fly Quiet, because the Fly Quiet program we have now is really, really good at aligning departures and arrivals near the curfew periods. And while it is earlier, 6 a.m. a departure is earlier than 7 a.m. obviously, the program works. And some pilots would claim, hey, if you make me wait until 7 a.m., you're removing flexibility from my aircraft. I'm not going to participate in this program. So what we don't want to do, we don't want to lose those participants. We want to somehow formulate the program that'll make it worth the while of the pilot and the hangar tenant to participate in the program. So essentially, we have some questions here. I'm not going to read them one by one, but we want to get a survey set up with our pilot community. ACAT reviewed the survey questions and essentially thought that they were appropriate and that they were well crafted. And ACAT again also looked at the general program overview of aligning a simple one standard voluntary curfew program from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. and agreed again that would be something they think may work. So at this point, we're just asking for a little bit of guidance if the board wants to comment on the work activity we have here, so we can get these pilot questions off and get the survey started.
Can I just quickly add, Hardy, that we're definitely not asking the board to approve the new curfew tonight. I hope that's clear. We just wanted to give the board a chance to see the survey before it went out and to get just an overview of where this is heading. So just any comments or any that you have on the survey, or kind of where we've gotten so far. This will come back as a formalized approval at a future board meeting, probably in a few months.
I'd just like to make a comment.
Okay.
I sat on the edge of the taxiway, just holding short of runway 11 yesterday morning, and I waited for the clock to strike 6:30, and I'm pretty sure if you check your records, I took off at 6:30 in a couple seconds. Very diligently waited until 6:30 to take off.
Thank you.
If I didn't have that incentive, I would have gone quite a bit earlier.
Okay. So then you're saying at the 7 a.m. one, you probably wouldn't wait for that. Just curious.
Yesterday, it wouldn't have worked. I was down to I was pinching minutes, so 6:30 worked. But
Okay.
at 7, I probably would have just said, okay, I'm going to forego the incentive and I'm going to take off early. And that's, for me, that's the decision I can make, and I'm okay with paying the extra money. I'm not saying it's not fair. I would be okay with it. I probably wouldn't participate in it.
Okay.
One program detail, Mary.
Pardon me?
I wanted to point out one program detail. The way that one of the proposed changes is that the participant could participate until they had an infraction and they'd roll off and they'd be out of it for just that 1 month period. But I don't want to use the word punitive, but kind of. There would be a significant financial incentive to stay within the program boundaries. But if, for example, Jim said, you know what, I have to go. I cannot wait. I have to go, and they flew. There would be significant financial repercussions for that. But the entrant could re-enter the program in 60 days time, which would essentially really constantly re-emphasize that commitment to the no flying after 10 and before 7. So it gives a little bit more program flexibility where somebody, if they did once or twice a year, which we hear, Kevin and I hear this constantly, people say, if I could only go once a year, then it would work, because there's some times where the flexibility of my aircraft, we had a hangar attendant that arrived from international travel. He landed in San Francisco at midnight. He came in at 1 a.m. and he lost his curfew incentive portions. And we had to work through that with him. There's certain periods of time and certain times it happens where it may be better to give some flexibility and we may get higher compliance.
Well, this goes to striving for low impact on our neighbors. So other questions? I had some questions, but Lisa or Rick, do you have other questions?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Rick.
What's really the purpose of this? You're trying to make something more effective?
There's two pieces. We want to simplify our curfew. We want to make it effective, and we want to align it with our voluntary curfew, which is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And right now, our Fly Quiet incentive program is not aligned with the 10 p.m. or 7 a.m. California noise standard.
So Rick, we have two incentives people can select, 6 and 6:30 in the morning. And what we're trying to say, get rid of those and align it with the 7 to 10 curfew that the state has, but also build a little flexibility into that so that occasionally if they need to have an earlier departure, they can, but they lose some of that financial incentive for a period of time, but we don't kick them out essentially for a year, where then they can fly whenever they want because they're out of the program now.
Well, it's a 3-month period, isn't it? When they're
9 months.
It's 9 months.
Yeah. Is that right, Hardy? I think it's 9 months, almost a year.
I believe it's 7 months. It's 7 when somebody gets their curfew incentive taken away, they are removed from the program for 7 months.
But again, we're going to with you and go over all the details of this. We're just trying to find out if the pilots would even consider something like this.
When I get removed from the incentive program due to an infraction, I try to adhere to the incentive program the next day anyways, just as a point of data.
So I think the ask is about the questionnaire, right? Yes. Do it, don't do it. Is that really what yeah. So I do, on the one hand, I do think the questionnaire is a good idea, definitely to collect the data. Also, I'll just offer that, in my day job, when we do these kinds of surveys, which we do very frequently, it's very helpful feedback, but it doesn't mean it 100% drives the decisions that we make, right? Mm-hmm. So we may choose to make a decision around the incentive program that appears or in fact may be contradictory to what we hear from some people in the aviation community. And what's helpful about a scenario like that is we know what we're doing, right? We would know if that was what would happen. So I do like the idea of the survey. I do think it's great to get the data, but I'm just sort of parking this place that it's not the 100% driver on the program.
Sure.
I agree 100% on that.
Rick, do you have other questions? Okay, Jim? Any other questions? My other question was just on line C. If a participant flies outside the period, monthly savings times 2 will be charged, payable in invoice. Could that be perceived as a penalty, which we can't do? I mean, could they ignore the invoice and say you're penalized?
Yeah, there are some constraints around that, and we would probably, if that's part of the ultimate program that we present to the board, we'll have vetted that with Peter Kirsch, because the incentive would roll month to month, and it could not be punitive and it could not be a fine. So to your point, we would have to get clarity on how that's going to work. But if that's the final presentation we make to the board, that's a great point. We would need to make sure that it was fashioned in a way that it was truly an incentive and not a fine.
Yeah, an incentive.
Yeah, we have to be very clear about that. And participant needs 30 calendar days within curfew to re-enter program. What does that mean?
Well, for example, if Jim had to taken off at 6:31, he would have 30 calendar days that he would have to perform within the 10 to 7 curfew. He would pay his invoice and then he would re-enter the program and start gaining the incentive back.
So he would be expected to pay back. I mean, in your example here was 4,000 square foot hangar at 1840, saving $200 a month. I'm just trying to get a sense of that. So he would be, and I'm not sure that's Jim, that's whoever. They would get an invoice for $400. They would have to be 30 days of 10 to 7, and then they could re-enter. So basically, essentially they'd be out 3 months.
Yeah, they would have 30 days of conforming to the 10 to 7 curfew. They could re-enter and away they would go.
Okay. So in terms of questions, I would just like to see a question, something like the state of California and town cities have a fairly standard noise compliance standard of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. Do you consider the effect of the noise of your overflight on neighbors on the ground in your decision as to when you fly? And I can send that to you. But I mean, basically asking them, do they consider that in their framework when they're deciding to leave? So I would like to see a question on that. And then going back to, who was it that always did the surveys?
Godby.
Godby, yes. So there's that question of the way that, like when you're given a choices A, B, C, and it's 5, 10, 15, people typically pick the middle number. It's just human nature. And so using your example again of a $200 per month on an 1,840, that is a 10% right there. And is that what your goal was, trying to get the 5, 10, 20%? Or, I mean, so what I'm trying to think is, do you set up a 2%? Where is it? The way you ask the question ends up biasing the response. So I'm trying to think how to phrase this. Is that worth, setting outside parameters? I mean, more than 20% is a pretty significant incentive. Right now in the budget, we're paying forecasted for 2019. It was $130,000 in 19. In 2020, we're budgeting $195,000 for this Fly Quiet. That's a big bump. That's a 50% increase. Why that? Which begs the question: why did we bump it by 50%?
Well, we had more hangars.
The executive. We added the executive hangars.
Yeah, and Mary, to your point, we, in developing the survey methodology, struggled with understanding what sidebars to put, whether it's 10%, 20%, etc. And I would be open to anybody's insight on that. We did not want to financially expose the district in an unneeded way, so we want to make the absolute minimum incentive to get everybody to comply, and that's where the benefit really is for everybody, is that you've given me exactly enough incentive for me to comply to the 10 to 7. What that is, we hope to understand through the use of this survey.
I guess I would like to delete the more than 20%. I mean, just how we yeah, I'll participate if you give me a 20% breakdown. You know what I mean? It's a 5, 10, 15, 20%. It's what you say more than 20%. It's like, yeah, I'm going to circle that.
Yeah, and I would take any insight from the board if you said, let's do 2%, 5%, 7%, and 9%. And it really was arbitrary for us to get started, but I'll take whatever insight you think are the right numbers.
I'd like to see 5, 10, 15%. I mean, basically, we're giving 10% now. Is that correct?
Roughly speaking.
Well, on that, they get
5%.
Yeah, they're getting 4 cents right now.
Yeah.
And this will be a higher incentive by 25%.
Well, it depends on the curfew.
It depends on if you take both of them. So it's the square footage savings is you could do it twice. You could get the Q1 for 6 a.m. or the Q2 for 6:30. And I think what the survey is really, what we're trying to do with the survey is understand the pilot community's desire to participate in something that would work for the district and work for them both.
Okay. I mean, to a certain point, I like the staggered because it incentivizes people for those earlier hours. Or no, so what we're trying to do is say 7 a.m. Okay. In this numbers, I guess I would like to be 5, 10, 15% because then it's bracketed.
Does that sound good to everybody?
And question 8.
Sure, Brent, but I might get incentivized to too much to input on this conversation.
Okay.
Brent.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't find
it's
the button.
right? It's a data collection exercise we're doing, not a policy. And I get it that the questions can start to create some expectation, but we're not doing the policy now. We're collecting some data.
But the way you ask the questions.
I agree.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
So, and I will send you, Hardy, this other question that I had mentioned.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jim, at this point, you can stay involved. Once it proceeds, then you should discuss with Josh. But at this point, you're fine.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm just thinking, would we have a question that's 2%, 2.5% at 6:30 and 2.5% at 7? And I'm putting this out there for the other board members. Because I think 7 a.m. is going to be a showstopper for people, Jim. I mean, I'm looking to you, and that two-prong. That's from staff's point. They're trying to get away from the two-step process, but it also is like 5%. 5 cents right off the top. I'm trying to sort of get my head wrapped.
I mean, I certainly think that we could do the survey and see what learnings we get from it and have a discussion post the survey about what the right thing to do is. But my early input would be, if you get rid of this before 7 a.m. departure opportunity to still get some incentive and still participate and be a good neighbor, I think you're going to find people that can afford to go before 7 a.m. are just going to go anyways. And they're going to say, well, it's the airport's problem. They made the incentive too onerous for me to get to my job in the Bay Area. So I'm just going to leave at 6 instead of 6:30, or I'm going to leave at 5 instead of 6:30. And then the little guys that can't afford it won't be able to go. And so I'm not sure we're going to we're the goal that we're after. Although I do totally appreciate having a more simple system, because I never know if you ask me what time am I allowed to go and which incentive program am I up for, it's hard. And I think I just admitted I took off at 6:30, and it sounds like I'm not supposed to take off till 6:31. So I do that too. It's complicated.
Let Well, we'll do. I think our goal would be to do the survey, see what happens. I think the one thing that's different about this that the other curfew, where you can't get the curfew for 7 months. We're just telling people that if you have that occasional flight where you need to leave at 6:30, you can still do that. You just have to pay back the incentive and then be compliant for 30 days, and then you can enter the program again. We're looking at things like that rather than saying it's all or nothing. So to get flexibility to occasionally do those things is kind of what we're trying to explore. We don't have a good idea yet, but it would be a little different than what you've curfew system that we've had in the past.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's do the survey and come to you.
Okay, there I am. Sorry, I've got a low battery, so it can yell at me. Okay, there we go. Okay. So then moving on, you've got
on to public comment.
Oh, public comment.
There is no public comment. Proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So then we're moving on to financial report.
Hi. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just a brief update. I know we've been talking for a while, so I'll try to get through this quickly. 5 months ending in May. You've seen the report, so I'll just kind of give you the highlights. FBO income, we're at $987,000 to a budget of $977,000, so we're neck and neck with our budget, 90 grand ahead of last year. So even given the weird circumstances we're facing right now, we've been able to kind of keep up with a lot better than I had predicted revenues. So we're looking pretty good there. Total revenue, we're down 116,000 all in year to date, but we're still 324, almost 325,000 ahead of last year. Cost of goods are pretty much exactly on budget, which is great. Payroll is still a little bit under, and our gross profit is just off about 50,000. And just to give you a little bit of quick information about fuel sales, we did definitely see a dip in April. Like we talked about, May picked up a little bit. Sorry, excuse me.
Been there.
And we're seeing June pick up as well. It's definitely not picking up as quickly as May did, but I do think I kind of looked at an average of what the first couple of weeks looked like in June, and then took that to forecast a little bit of what the rest of the month should look like. And I think we'll probably end up doing better than the forecast. So we still might be slightly under last year for June, but it's definitely picking up. On the hangar front, Mary, I know you had asked about any kind of forbearance on the rent, and we have only had one person take us up on it. We've only received one actual promissory note so far. So the actual dollar amount there is $2,412. So certainly not a whole lot there.
Yeah, there were 8 people at one point, weren't there?
Well,
yeah, and once we put the promissory notes out there, I think, sorry, Kevin, you're probably going to say the same thing, that I think people got them and then we're kind of like, well, I might as well just pay it, or it's not kind of worth all the extra effort.
And there's
still some out there.
I'm just saying there may still be a few more that come in, but we're not just letting people fill out the application and then doing the forbearance. We're having them sign a promissory note which explains the details of what they're doing, and some are not hurting those. Is that accurate, Hardy?
Yeah.
That's great. Okay, good. Thanks. Is there any questions for Kelly from Rick? Do you have any questions? Okay, Lisa? I don't see you, so.
No questions. Thank you.
And
None
Jim?
from Rick.
Jim, any? Okay, I just, I have questions or a request. Back in the expenses, and you're sending me the whole budget with the breakouts of 100, 600, 800. What I'm wondering is if we could add a column in here that shows, like where you have office equipment, which part of it's airside, admin, and AvCom. You know, adding a column into the Excel spreadsheet.
So,
Yeah, we had been talking about actually compressing that portion back down.
No, I was hoping to keep it like this, so.
Yeah, I think
Kevin and I were talking about that, sorry.
Just real quick, is we've had kind of folks that don't like the 3 and people that like the 3. And so, because sometimes you have to add up all 3 to figure out where you're at. And so some people want to see it compressed and some want to see so what we're going to do is that you'll get 2 copies. You'll get a copy with the compressed budget with everything together. And then there'll be a second version of that same budget that has 100, 600, 800. Is that right, Kelly? Yes. And then we'll put it on the side. And so next month you'll see it that way.
Great. I'm just saying, instead of 100, 600, 800, can you put 100, put airside? Instead of 600, say, admin, 800, AvCom.
You want the words, not a number?
Yeah,
we could put administration, O&M, and AvCom.
Right. The 3 categories. That would be helpful to me. I would appreciate that. Thank you. And I was just also curious on the exec hangars, the number 10 that we keep for, or do we keep number 1 or do we keep number 10 for overnight rentals? You know, of the new execs. And in here, what I'm looking at, and all I see is super exec hangar rent. I'm wondering if we need a separate line for our hangar that we rent out, because, you know, it rents out probably more in the winter than in the summer, but I'm really curious on tracking what that hangar rents, what revenue it brings in.
I think we have an overnight line item, but we can definitely look at that.
Yeah, I don't see that. I see, you know, just exec hangar rent and super exec hangar rent.
And the nightly one is up in the FBO income. I believe it's mixed into services, but
is it true that it rents more in the winter than the summer?
It does.
So that's what I'd like specific to that hangar, what income, what revenue it's bringing in. So adding that line somewhere. Either it would be under FBO.
Yeah, I believe it's already in there. I think it's in the services line, so I just have to pull it out of that.
Under services, okay, thanks. Yeah, redefine it or however it is. Great, thank you.
Sure.
That was all I had on that, and I think there were no other questions from the board members. So is there a public comment?
There is none.
Okay, moving on. We're probably down to the last 15 minutes to a half hour. Everybody can make it?
Get out of here.
Up or we're going to make it.
The GM report? Is that what's next? Yep. All right. Yep. So, as you're probably aware, there's quite a lot of fun and interesting training opportunities out there that have all kind of gone away. So, pretty virtual, and I'm also understanding that a lot of the virtual conferences are not really that popular. So there probably won't be a lot of travel and training until next year is what we're seeing. I'm going to turn a little time over to Rick. Rick has some Mountain Housing Council items that he wanted to cover.
Actually, I don't. They're all in the exhibit. Just read them.
They're all in the exhibit.
I attached 3 things to the point. There's one on Nahas, Dollar Creek Crossing, one from Shauna Doherty from the town of Truckee on Rick Lee, and one from the Mountain Housing Council report for the three. And I don't really want to go through 10 minutes of discussion of the reports that are attached.
Okay. Any questions on those? Lisa?
No, thank you.
None from me.
None from you, none from me. Okay. We read them and we like them. Thank you for doing that, Rick.
All right. And then on the JPA, lot of activity with the JPA. Emily, our executive director now, and she's really getting some stuff done. We're doing a employee housing survey, which will be really interesting to go through our employee group plus most of our service providers that we use at the airport to make sure the airport is viable. Our maintenance, rental cars, medevac, all those will be included in that housing survey to find needs. We're also working with being as kind of the first product that the local website to maybe help employees find housing through the short-term rental community. There's a local company startup that's doing that the Housing JPA is working with. We're just kind of finishing up all the legal requirements to operate as a JPA and starting to really get into putting some products out there. So it's moving along, and I'll keep updating you as new things develop.
Great. Any questions, Lisa?
No, I'm happy the JPA is moving ahead so well.
No questions from me.
No questions. Rick, any questions? Okay, and then is the hospital and the PUD, are they doing surveys as well?
Yeah, so the hospital district did the first one. They went through theirs first, and they're in the process of finalizing that. And then the other three are going to be here in July and August.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. 4 is the budget timeline process. So there it is in the staff report. Kind of a typical budget timeline for the 2021 budget. Here in the next day or two, you'll get those budget worksheets that we always pass out. And if you have budget items that you want us to build into the budget opportunities presentation that we're going to do in August, you have until I believe we put the 10th of July to get those to us. So Kelly will get those out to you and our staff here the next couple of days. She'll have it by the weekend. And then take a look at that and any ideas that have come to you. And then you see a December 2nd adoption of the final budget.
Great. Thanks. Any comments? Jim, Lisa, Rick? I don't think so. Okay.
No, nothing.
Jim?
Item 5 is the 4th of July flyover and air show update. So the air show, they will make the final decision on the air show on the 7th, but it's looking like it's going to be canceled, particularly with just how infection and COVID is kind of working through our communities. We're not going to be in phase 4 anywhere close in September. So there'll be a final announcement very likely on the 7th that the show is canceled for the year. The air show committee's been working very hard, and they want you to know they've been involving all the health departments, the town, the counties in this 4th of July flyover. And it's going to be quite spectacular, in my opinion. You'll see some media coming out on it this week. And they've tried to keep it kind of quiet there too, because we're trying we don't want to attract a lot of extra people. But it looks like there'll be a D-Day association is kind of helping us with it. But it's right now we have 5, maybe 6 C-47s and then a couple of other smaller aircraft that will be doing a loop around the community and then around the lake, making sure they're getting the whole airport district as a honor flight tribute to our frontline healthcare workers and just a 4th of July celebration. So from about 11 to 12:30, these airplanes will be making this circuit. Then they'll be back here at the airport. There are no events at the airport. You can't really invite people out here to see these airplanes once they're here, but at least it's something that people can enjoy, and you can see it from wherever you want to go. The air show committee's been able to do this with only about a quarter to a third of their regular air show budget. And it'll be on the 4th of July. So that's kind of what's going on with that. Any questions on the flyover or the air show?
Rick,
I've already seen media on it. So if the goal is to not promote it, I'm not sure I think that's not happening. It's being promoted.
Yep. The first, there was one article that went out, I think yesterday, which was the first one that had to go out based on some timeline or deadline. But there may be other people that that have advertised it that we've, well, I don't know. We've not given people permission to advertise it, and we've told everyone that we've been working with to not talk about it in local media channels until we launch the full launch of the public relations campaign on it, which will happen this week. It was about a week before the event is what we wanted. We don't think it's going to draw big crowds. We've talked with our police department and others and the health departments, and they're not concerned about it. There's already been a lot of people here for the 4th, but this is something you can see from just about wherever you are. The radio station is going to broadcast live during the event and let people know where the airplanes are and where they're moving to. But there'll be a mile and trail, and there's 6 of them. So, and we're also doing some outreach into our neighborhoods that are just at the departure end of runway 29 to let them know that at about 11 o'clock, it's going to be noisy for about 15 minutes while they all depart.
Okay, Rick?
No comment.
Jim? Okay. Yeah, I'm glad that there's outreach. I mean, it was a really cool flyover that the military did, but people knowing that that's what it was, people thought it was cool. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad you're doing that outreach.
Yeah, and they're going to fly all the hospitals, including the side planes. When they make their circuit, they'll be able to fly over South Lake Tahoe, over the hospital down there too, then back up to Incline, West Shore, down the 80 shore, and so yeah, it should be. I think they're doing a really good job with. You'll see some really nice media coming out. Hardy, so that's all on item 4. Hardy, did you want to talk about the next one with the recurrent the noise abatement training with our controllers?
Oh yeah, we organized some training for the air traffic controllers. So we did a Friday and I believe a Monday and a Friday training. So we hit all the controllers. We talked about the routes, the preferred use of the Conwind runways, some peak period operating, standard operating procedures. We've done this recurrent, every year. We also have a standard operating procedure and a contract with Midwest that outlines that that relationship between the airport and the tower. So we just wanted to update you, let you know that we're actively meeting with the tower personnel to talk about community noise and annoyance. And I personally spend at least some period of time, pretty much each and every day down at the tower, watching what they're doing and verifying what's going on, as well as flying the airspace. And I just wanted to let you know we're doing some training there, and we'll keep it up.
Thank you. Rick, comments? Lisa?
No comment.
No,
Lisa?
no, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item 7. When I was talking to Lisa or Teresa about this, and we did talk a little bit last week about trails, and I just wanted to make sure the board had a copy of the latest draft or latest version of our airport trails master plan. I didn't have anything beyond just making sure you had a copy of that. It might be good to look through it over the next month as we get into July or August. There will be that request will be coming back that we looked at earlier in the year on funding for the Riverview Park Trail from the Rayleigh site. So we'll be looking at that.
I have a comment about that. Sorry to interrupt. I have a request, Kevin, and I really am personally appealing to you to take this. I mean, you or your staff, as opposed to JMA or other folks at Georgia Ranch. There's a very confusing discussion about the controlling document with regard to the trail. And the confusion comes up, is it the CEQA document, the EIR, which, Art Chapman, representing his business, keeps insisting is the controlling document. And then I think what the rest of us think is no, it's the conditions that the town put on the development.
Okay.
So, and we just keep looping around and around and around and around when Art's come before us previously. So if you could take on getting clarification about what is the controlling document with regard to the trail agreement, I just would so appreciate it if you or your staff would explain that to us and not ask the developer to do that, not put the developer in that position.
Well, I will do that. Making a note here.
Thanks. I can, if it's necessary, I can talk with you more offline about what I mean.
I kind of think I know what you're talking about there, and I'll clarify that, and we'll see what they say.
Yeah, not that you want to go back and look at those previous meeting videotapes, but if you go back and look at them, it'll be really clear.
Look at that. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, we just wanted you to have that new copy. It's a December 19 draft as opposed to the 2016 one. Very similar, but it kind of shows where all the trails are. And I always, as I talk to people about trails, we may build some of these ourselves, but ultimately the reason we did this Trails Master Plan was to get on paper a document we get out to the community of where trails are appropriate on airport property that we or others could build and apply for funding for, as people have had, different projects have had to cross, airport property. So I just wanted to have a copy of that and get that out to you.
Okay, thanks. Rick, any questions? Jim? No. Any public comment?
Yep, there was a public comment from Nancy Woody in regards to the trails. Nancy from Prosser Lakeview Estates says, please complete the bike/walk paths. They're very much needed and appreciated by all who use them, visitors and locals alike. More people will get more usage out of the trails than there are pilots and passengers that fly into Truckee.
Okay, thank you. So let's see, you've got upcoming board meeting schedule.
Yeah, so just one quick comment. I think July 29th, we moved our board meeting from July 22nd to the 29th to accommodate some schedules. Probably a lot of those have changed. I wasn't going to be at the board meeting originally. I don't know if you remember, I told you in January I was going to miss the June board meeting. But obviously all of our schedules have changed. I'm fine keeping it on the 29th. That's where we've been advertising it for the last 4 months. Is everyone good with that? All right, I'm seeing a lot of head nodding. So we will continue.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Good.
Yes.
We'll continue on with the 29th.
Okay.
And then just know that your budget workshop will be the August 26th from 1:30 to 4. Remember that first budget workshop is the budget opportunities discussion. We'll try and have the 5-year forecast. We try and build that tool, and we'll go through all the big items that we want to plan for the 2021 budget. That's coming up. That'll be before the regular August board meeting, 1:30 to 4, and then our board meeting at 4:30. And the last thing is just the rolling agenda. So just coming up for July, we'll have this runway utilization report that we're working on will be July or August. We're working with the consultant. We're going to be working on it this week to finalize a date on that. But that report will be coming back to you. The new curfew proposal, probably more like August, could be July, depending on how quickly we get our survey data back. There is the hangar tenant CPI lease adjustment that you'll see that goes into effect. I got to talk to Kelly about that, but that's coming up also. And then also, I just wanted to let you know that we haven't forgotten about the agency partnership discussion. We did a couple months ago, we put that 60 to 90 day hold pending the airport district understanding where our airport revenues are, as we're seeing that those are strong still, although we're only halfway through the year roughly. I worked with them. Emily Avitis is helping us with that program, and we're hoping in August and September we'll be able to get that wrapped up so that you can look at these agency partnerships again. We delayed that for a few months due to the COVID issue. So that's kind of the rolling agenda. Any questions on that?
Rick, any questions? Okay, Lisa, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Jim?
Oh, man.
All right. I just, for Kevin, I would like to be involved with the runway utilization. I'd like to see the draft, and if we as a working group need to get together, I'd like to be part of this.
Yeah, no, we haven't done anything since the last time we all talked.
Okay.
So I did get the we got some pricing from that we've all seen from Tom, and we haven't done anything from that. We had to get through this board book, but tomorrow, Friday, we'll be putting that together, and we'll get the group together so that we know where we're heading with that.
Yeah, it's, it was a year ago exactly that that I requested that study.
Complicated project, but yes, we'll get it done.
All right. Any public comment on the rolling agenda?
No public comment.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second that.
Oh, and then we got to vote.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Director or Vice President Hetherington.
Yes.
Director Morrison.
Yes.
Vice or President Odette is absent. Director Stevens.
Yes.
Wallace.
Yep. All good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.